Veterans Archives, where your story matters. We are dedicated to preserving the stories of our nation's heroes for future generations. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, February 19th, 2025. We're talking with AJ McKinney, who served in the United States Army. So welcome, AJ. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
All right, we're going to just jump right into this thing.
Sounds good.
Yeah, full transparency for the audience. AJ and I aren't acquainted, but he does know my son, and they served together. So I'm interested in hearing some of those stories as well. Nothing's off limits here. Just want to say that. So with all that, let's get started with the simple stuff. When and where were you born?
I was born April 17th, 1986 in Rockford, Illinois.
Rockford, Illinois. Is that anywhere near Camp Ripley? No, Rockford, Illinois. We used to drive through Rockford to get to Camp Ripley. Never mind.
There you go. So yes, in order to go from obviously anywhere in Michigan, you have to take I-90 through Chicago, and Rockford's the last major city before you hit the state line of Illinois.
Oh, okay. Yep. Got it. You know, interestingly enough, we moved my brother to Minnesota. This is a total side story here. We moved my brother to Minnesota, and my dad was our guide, and he said, "Hey, we're going to take the northern route through northern Michigan because you only have to go through 2 states instead of 3 states to get there." Right? It took forever to get to Minnesota. So yes, the way to get to Minnesota is through Illinois. Just for the people listening. So
unfortunately, that Skybridge toll is pretty high.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up, AJ. And is AJ short for something?
Yeah, it's short for Alan James.
Okay.
I don't really like that name. So AJ's always been there for me. It's always what everybody's called me since my earliest memory. And it kind of stuck. And when I see or hear Alan, I think of a big fat guy who's in a white beater sitting in a recliner somewhere, and they call him Al. I don't want to be that guy.
I don't blame you at all.
And Alan was the middle name of my father, and it came from nowhere else other than that. And then James, I have no idea where that came from because my grandfather's name was not James. So I kind of got slapped pretty hard. But if I was a female, my name would have been Raylan.
Oh.
And I found that out. But then I also got told by family members that they were going to make fun of me because I would have walked down the stairs holding on to the railing. So
I can't wait to hear about this family.
Well, it's not that big of a story, but yeah, it's just it's funny to look back on that and just AJ. But growing up, parents got together, I think when they were 25 and 24. They lasted for about 3 years in marriage after that, so they split. Mom was solo for a while. Dad was solo for a while. Actually, still is solo at 64. I think he is now 65, somewhere in there. I didn't do the math. I didn't prepare for that.
That's okay. No tests here.
Yeah, right. So my mother was for the longest time my like memory as a child. My mom was a dispatcher for a police department and then became a police officer. I was born in Rockford, grew up in South Beloit, Illinois. So South Beloit is the last city you hit in Illinois on I-90 going north. And went to a very small school. South Beloit School District had probably about a class of 50 kids, I would say, if that. My best friend still to this day, Brian, me and him have been best friends since like pre-K. It was really cool to connect with him after I got out of the service because when I was in the service, there was no turning it off. So I had a class of about 50 kids up until about the age of 14. And then I switched schools. I moved a half mile down the road. Don't know how the school boundaries are drawn up around there. I'm not there anymore. But moving that half mile down the road, I went from 50 kids to a class of 700 kids.
Wow. How was that for you?
Oh, that was, it was my sophomore year, my first year there. That was a huge culture shock. I was a 3-sport athlete. I wasn't the greatest athlete, but I was a manageable 3-sport athlete. And what we loved doing is, we'd all get together and do stuff.
solid 3-sport athlete, right? So you were kind of a big fish in a small pond, and now you're a regular sized fish in a giant pond.
Exactly. I mean, our coaches were all volunteers. They weren't paid teachers. Very small knit community. Had a big boom when I was there too. So they had new neighborhoods built. They were getting prepared to have a new school built for them. Like big deal was going on. Then my freshman year, my mother and my stepfather bought a new house half mile down the road,
Mm-hmm.
and we move in. I switch schools. I lose all those friends, and because you're a rival school now, you're a snob nose, you're too good for us. And it was never any of those things. It was just I'm trying to deal with the culture shock and try and be somebody at one school and then be somebody else that was a friend at the other school. It was a crazy time for me. I had to grow up real quick at that point. Um, my father was out of the picture at this point. My mother and him had some problems, so I stopped seeing him when I was 13. So I literally only had my mother and my stepfather.
So
And
I'm sorry, how long into, so how old were you when your mom remarried?
oh, well, that's a good question. They got married twice.
Oh,
So she was 7. I was 7 when she married my stepfather.
okay.
Uh, they ended up having my half brother when, well, maybe I was 5 or 6, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It's kind of sketchy in my head. It might have been 5 or 6 they got married. I was in their wedding. I had a glorious mullet, white tuxedo. It was fantastic.
Wow, that's
Uh,
amazing.
Daughter loves the pictures.
Uh-huh.
She knows where her good hair comes from. Um, then at 7, they had my half brother in '93, and him and I were 7 years apart. So it never really worked out for us. It was two different generations at
Oh
that
yeah.
point. So he was a little kid to me always and still is. Uh, so yeah, and then they got divorced. I think when I was like 9 or 10,
Okay.
my mother and stepfather got divorced, and then they end up getting back together, and then they end up getting remarried. Now, this is a good story too, which will come in after the high school transition. Um, so I go from Subloyd High School to a place called Hananiga High School.
Mm-hmm.
Hananiga High School is in Rockton, Illinois. Purple and gold. Love the colors. Still love the school. It's one of the biggest schools in the area outside Chicago. Easily, hands down, one of the biggest schools. And this community school has a bunch of feeder towns that feed into it. It just sucks them all up. I'm actually surprised Subloyd hasn't ended up going there yet. So you go to the school, you adjust. A lot of things going on in my head my sophomore year. My sophomore year was 2001, 9/11.
Right.
So I remember sitting in intro to construction and them wheeling the TV in because we didn't have smart boards and TVs, and they had the big cart with the Monster Frankenstein TV on it
Yep.
and showing us what happened. And that had an effect on me. Uh, I know everybody says they joined for 9/11, things like that, but that made me mad. It didn't make me patriotic. It really pissed me off. I wanted to do something, but here I am, a 15-year-old who knows nothing. What can I do?
Right.
So, uh, all those years, kind of before that, made me into who I was. Resiliency with my mother, my father, uh, my stepfather, who wasn't the best guy in the world at all. He did stuff to me, physically abusive wise, that just should not have happened at that age. Uh, Going back though to mother being a police officer, um, every year, Beloit Police Department, the first city you hit when you get into Wisconsin, Beloit Police Department had a Christmas party for the police officers, and the Beloit Daily News always came and took pictures.
Mm-hmm.
For about 6 years straight, I was on the front cover of the Beloit Daily News sitting on Santa Claus's lap when I was little.
Mm-hmm.
One of the very last times the Beloit Daily News talked to me, they asked me what I wanted to do with my life. I mean, I was super little. I was probably maybe 8 or 9, and I told them I wanted to be a fighter pilot. So I kind of had that lingering for service in me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, always wanted to be a police officer. I grew up with police officers. I mean, I got aunts and uncles that are cops. It seems like I got this massive family, but I always had this. I mean, around that time, Broken Arrow came out. Top Gun's pretty relevant still.
Right.
We used to have, like, I think it was Tomcats, one of the shows that we used to watch as kids. We had G.I. Joe. We had all these things. And I wasn't a big G.I. Joe guy. I mean, like, I was a Power Rangers kid.
Yeah.
I want to serve people. I want to do good. I want to destroy evil, you know. So those were all just traits and personality traits that were in my head that were floating around at the time. So going back to 9/11, it wasn't that I was mad because honestly, before 9/11, I didn't know what the World Trade Center was.
Right.
I was a naive 15-year-old who was listening to Linkin Park every day, who was focused on football because that was football time. That's all I cared about. And I was trying to fit in with all these brand new people, highlights in my hair, preppy clothes, trying to look the role. And that was almost a moment that brought me together closer to my classmates at that point. So then I started actually establishing friendships. Um, Throughout that year, though, it kept lingering in the back of my head what we actually saw, what was going on. And my mother and stepfather get remarried that year. I didn't go. They wanted me to be a witness at the wedding, and I was kind of a protest to it. And we had a field trip for our intro to construction class that day, watching a manufacturing company make trusses for prefab houses.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't missing that.
You had your
They wanted me to miss that.
priorities, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They wanted me to miss that because they wanted my half brother and myself to sign as witnesses for their marriage certificate.
Huh.
You already got married once, and I was your ring bearer at the first wedding. I ain't doing it a second time.
Did you think it was a little crazy? Like, you got divorced. Why are we going through this twice?
So the reason why they did, and this is just going back off of talking with other families, stuff like that. My stepfather had a stent put in his heart, and he was having heart problems. And because his insurance was awful or didn't pay the necessary medical costs, he remarried my mother so that way he could get health insurance coverage. They were staying together regardless. It was more like a financial arrangement, but he wanted to be back with her, and she wasn't pulling anybody else. So they just kind of went back to it.
Kind of convenient. A marriage of convenience, basically, then.
Exactly. Kind of like a contract marriage in a way, like for the Middle East.
Yeah,
you do for me, I do for you, okay?
It all works out.
Yes. So all of that's going down, and 2003 rolls around, and 2003 was the initial push into Iraq. I remember it very vividly. I remember sitting in front of the TV and watching it. Every ounce of coverage I could watch, I watched. And that's when it started coming out of me that being a fighter pilot probably wasn't an option. Not that I didn't have the educational requirements per se or anything leading up to that or the background. I was impatient, extremely impatient. I wanted to do something. And if that meant going on a battlefield and destroying the enemy at all costs that I could, absolutely. I would do it in a heartbeat. So I ended up taking a pre-ASVAB test, get a great score. Recruiters are just calling me from every branch.
Mm-hmm.
Take the actual ASVAB with the Army, I get a 73. And I actually sign on as a linguist at first. And was all pumped about it. Everything's going to go good. And then I became what we call a DEP loss, delayed entry program loss. I didn't enlist after I got out of high school. There was a couple of reasons. I had a lot of stuff going on in my life at that time. My mother and stepfather kicked me out of the house when I was 17. So I was walking from South Lloyd area to Rockford, living in homeless shelters, supporting myself.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What, if you don't mind, like what happened that your parents decided to kick you out of the house and now you're homeless?
I was a very rebellious teen. I got into a lot of trouble and stuff after I switched schools. I think it was to rebel for the changes they made in my life. very strict. I could never have friend time. I could never go anywhere, do anything. I didn't have a car. They wouldn't let me use a car. They held things above my head too many times. I sat in my room. I had lights, like telling you, before LED light strips were everywhere, my room was like a freaking disco hall. Like you walk in, I got lights everywhere.
Uh-huh.
And I listened to my music as loud as I could because our walls were insulated great. And I'd be in my room. I didn't have access to a computer because my stepfather said I didn't deserve one, even though his son, my half brother, had one in his room, had everything he wanted in his room. I couldn't. Uh, so that made things really tough on me. I didn't know what to do with my life. I was going to school, I was going to football practice, and that was my life. That was it. Uh, so I became rebellious and I lashed out. I did stupid stuff, not stupid as in I should be in jail the rest of my life, but stuff that I got tickets for, I got cuffed, and you're lucky your mom's a police officer. I'm letting you go, blah, blah, blah. And it came to the point where I wanted to reach back out to my dad. I haven't had contact with him since I was 13, and my mother did not like that.
Yeah.
She rebelled against me. She's like, "Oh, everything I do for you, and well, you don't do anything for me. You collect a paycheck from my father for child support, and that's what you do." My dad literally works to provide for me, even though I can't have a relationship with him because you don't want me to. So I had dinner with my dad and his girlfriend at the time and her son, and it went well. It was really awkward, but it went really good.
So you had a half brother on your dad's side as well?
No,
No. Oh, this
no,
was somebody that she had before
that
she.
was her son only. Yes, from a
Okay.
previous marriage.
Okay.
So it went really well. It was awkward, but I ended up going back to my mother's house that night, and she's just livid. She's mad about it. And it takes about a week. She stews over it, and it just doesn't get any better to the point where we get into a major blowout. And she's just like, "If you think your life's so much better, go live with him." And I just got kicked out.
Wow.
I had a backpack full of clothes, and that was it. I couldn't take any. I mean, even still to this day, I don't call her my mother. I call her my egg donor because I don't have a relationship with her. And even to this day, everything that I ever owned from my childhood is at her house. I assume somewhere's packaged up. I'll never get it back. So I ended up bouncing around from the homeless shelter to a friend across the street from my mother's house, who is an adult friend who, my mom used to watch their kids. I used to watch his kids for him. And he's like, "Dude, you need to get your life straight. You need to join like the military or something after else is done." And his brother's twin brother was in the Navy or was in the Navy at that point. And he's like, "You need to join the Navy." And I'm like, "Dude, I can't join the Navy." Like all the stigmas that come along with the Navy, I cannot join the Navy. I cannot be on a boat. I cannot do these things. The one thing when he was letting me stay at his house, he had a movie down in his basement that I used to watch every day, Black Hawk Down.
Oh yeah, very familiar. Read the book too.
Yep, got the book up there on the shelf.
Yep.
I've met some of those guys too because they used to come to our deployment balls at Fort Lewis, Washington, because Ranger Battalion was there.
Okay.
So that movie summed up what I wanted. I didn't want to crash on a Black Hawk, but that itch, that something I wanted was in that.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't know this for years. I think I just told him about 5 or 6 years ago how much that had an impact on me, sleeping in his basement, unfinished basement, on a couch, watching Black Hawk Down. And when that time came to finally enlist in 2004, I'm like, no, I can't do it. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to renegotiate contracts at that time. They didn't want any of that.
Right. It was kind of like almost like a drawdown period, wasn't it? Or
it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the surge when everything ramped back up.
Right.
So the next couple of years, I lived with my grandparents mostly this entire period. Mm-hmm. My grandparents were more of a mother and father figure to me than anybody. My mom used to be single back in her day. She used to drop me off with them all the time. I mean, I stayed with them so much they had 4 VHS tapes of the original '89 Batman with Michael Keaton that I tore through 3 of those, so they had to buy another one. With how many times I watched or watched Unsolved Mysteries with them, or Looney Tunes with my grandfather in the morning, like all those things. That was my life with them. They always viewed me as another child to them. So I think it was 2006. We finally reached a critical point in my life where it was like, we need to figure out what we're doing here. You know, bouncing from job to job, from construction job to construction job to I need stability. I love being here with family, and that, I think, it's one thing that scared me the most was being away.
Hmm.
But I didn't want to be National Guard. I didn't want to do something halfway. I wanted to do it all the way. So I had to talk myself into it about what can we do or what can I do to make my life better? Is staying here in Southwood, Illinois a great idea? No, not at all. Not the route I was going.
Right.
Between the underage drinking and everything I had going on, I'm like, something bad is bound to happen. I'm a ticking time
Hmm.
bomb. So we sat down one night when my grandparents wanted KFC. That was one of their big family things they wanted to do every once a week. KFC. Sitting down, and we're just like, my grandfather was in the Air Force Reserve. I mean, not a lot of experience, obviously, but enough that I trusted and respected his opinion on anything I brought to him. And my grandmother never had an ounce of service, but her father was a World War II veteran who served in the Battle of the Bulge. So I kind of had some things to bounce off, and I told him finally, I'm like, hey, I'm joining the Army again, but this time I'm doing it.
Hmm.
And they're like, you're for real? Absolutely. Dead set, solid, for real. What are you going to do? I'm like, I'm not going to be a linguist. Well, what do you want to do then? Called a recruiter. Got the recruiter on the phone. Hey, you got to retake your ASVAB again. Scored a 72. This time it was 73. Shucks. He's like, you have all these jobs. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't matter to me. I want to be in the infantry. Make it happen. I want to go kick doors down. I want to be the frontline guy. I want to experience every bit of what war is. I don't care what it does to me. I want to be there and I want to do it. So we did. Now, I've stopped talking to my father again in that like 2 year time span because my dad was a heavy alcoholic,
Hmm.
60 DUIs to be exact. Like
Wow.
he is so much better today. He got treatment in, I think it was 2008 or 2009, and he has been sober ever since. And I am so damn proud of him. I have whiskey on my shelf back there. I am afraid to drink in front of that man because I don't want to trigger something. But he and I have talked about that, and he is good to go. He's like, you want to have a drink? You have a drink. I'll even buy you a drink. I don't care. Like, all right, we're good then. Um,
I wanted to ask you something though, real
yeah,
quick. There's a couple of things. One is that uh, was it difficult for you to call the recruiter after having not shipped and then say, "Hey, I really want to do it this time"? Did you have to? I mean, I don't know. I was a recruiter. I don't think you have to convince me a whole lot. If you're going to sign up, we're going to do it again. But was that difficult for you to do, or was it just like, "Hey, I'm doing this"?
it was difficult to do, and I was also a recruiter, so I know how it feels to have a dep loss.
Right.
Um, it was difficult to do, and I actually had to go through a waiver process to even get back in.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't something as simple as, all right, bud, you never done this before. Let's do it. No, it was, all right, we ran your social security number and we got your old files and everything back, your medical stuff, your legal stuff. We got all of this. That means you're a dep loss.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do about it? I'm like, well, I'm for real. Like, guys, you, I'm 2 years removed from any of that. I'm good to go. I'm ready for it. So I had to do a lot of convincing. And by convincing, I was in a recruiting station doing everything I could. I actually busted my ass to work my way all the way to be at an E3 going into basic training. Like I did everything I could and we did it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in itself because I had to pay off like $700 in moving violations too, which was not fun.
We have a very similar story.
Thanks, Grandma. Grandma helped me out. I
Yeah.
paid her back. I wrote her that first check from Iraq. I'm like, oh, here you go. I'm so happy to give it to her.
That's awesome.
But
I did have one other question, and this is kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but this question rattles around in my head a lot when I talk with folks because Black Hawk Down was a very popular movie. I watched it several times before deployment, and I want to ask you this. It's going to sound kind of silly, but I got to ask. So, you know, when I was deployed, we had our fair share of firefights, and there's this one scene in the movie where they got I believe it's a 50 cal on top of the Humvee, which is how we traveled. I was military police. Please don't hold that against me. That's how we traveled. And there's a scene in the movie where they're in this firefight, and you can hear the spent shells falling down into the Humvee, and they make a very distinct sound. And I found, like, in the middle of a firefight, I have a flashback to the movie because they got that sound down perfectly. You know what I mean? Like
they nailed it.
When we were going at it, it was all over with, and you know how your mind works. And I was like, oh, that was just like the sound that I heard in this movie. They nailed it.
So I'd never been in Humvees. Like, I never had to be in a Humvee unit. I mean, we had Humvees, but we never used it. I was Striker. So,
by the way, we loved you guys. We loved the Striker dudes.
Strikers are awesome.
Yeah,
they are the most underrated military vehicle on the battlefield. I love it.
I can tell you when we were in the shit and things were going south, and a Striker would pull up and a bunch of angry infantrymen would jump out the back and lay waste to everything in front of us. That was a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. So
love it.
I don't want to get too far out of ourselves, but yeah, I was just curious. Like, was that your experience? Or like that sound? The sounds in that movie were very, very good.
From the brass to the brass links, like even on the inside of a Striker, the floor of the Striker is like an acrylic paint. It's not just a normal paint. So here, and then we had, like, in the squad leader's hatch, so you had the squad leader, and then you have the gunner, and the gunner is obviously a remote control gun. So he's sitting in a hatch that's closed, shouldn't be up there, but the spent casings still hit the roof, and then they bounce out the squad leader's hatch, which he's on a platform that runs off of the bench seats, or now they're airborne seats, but it used to be bench seats. So you'd hear all the brass and then the brass links bouncing off into the actual Striker, and I guess I've never put one and one together the way you did, but yes, and I just rewatched it and watched a documentary on Netflix about it too. So, like, yes, that sound is nailed, and that is probably one of those sounds that now when I'm watching, it's going to take me back to every freaking live fire or firefight overseas we used it for now.
Yeah, and in all honesty, I haven't been able to watch that movie since I got back, and I got back in, it's 2007. We stepped off the battlefield. I still can't watch that movie, although it's a goal of mine to watch it without losing my mind. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, back to your enlistment in the Army, and we'll hear some of this other stuff later on.
So to show them the commitment that I had, I did all those things to become a private first class going in. I busted my ass. I was like the thorn in their ass because I was in a recruiting station as much as I could be. Like, if my grandparents let me go, I'm going. I'm there. We're doing something. I'm going to be here. I'm going to help you guys with something. We didn't have, like, future soldier training back then like they do now.
Right.
Which is a huge program in the Army itself now with recruiting. But we didn't have that. So this was like a prelim kind of thing. Guys just hanging out in the office. We had, like, a PlayStation set up in there. So you'd be playing, like, Call of Duty in there. And it was a good place to hang out. And so I end up enlisting in 2006. I think it was like October, November timeframe. I went to basic training January 3rd, 2007. I was the very first class of the new year at 119 Infantry. And that was a culture shock in itself because you see all the stuff where drill sergeants are getting on the bus or yelling at you and blah, 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 blah. We go to what's called 30th AG, the processing facility at Fort Moore, going to be Fort Benning again soon, hopefully. And it was like nothing like what I was expecting. Like, they weren't mean to us. It was like cadre. They're getting you off. You're going through that whole 7-day, 6-day, whatever it is, period of getting your haircut, your immunizations, your medical checkups, your uniforms. You're living in these barracks. That's like really cool. I still have access to my cell phone. Like, this is crazy. Like, what are we doing here?
They were tricking you, weren't they?
Oh, it's an absolute setup. I mean, they had soft serve ice cream in the DFAC. Like, are you kidding me?
And everything there was a test. You know that, right?
Oh, for sure it was a time. I'm drinking iced Coke. I'm having great food. And then they're like, all right, guys, tomorrow you guys are reporting to your unit. And like, this is gonna be nothing, man. This is easy as crap. That's when the shark attack happened.
Uh-huh.
Now, and I would say that was strenuous to a person who's never had adversity thrown in their face before. But with me, with the homelessness, with the way my upbringing was, with everything that I've already dealt with, that shark attack was nothing. You want me to take all my duffel bags and everything and carry them to this one spot and keep them on? Oh, absolutely. I'll do that in a heartbeat. I used to walk 20 miles in the snow with a backpack on. Like, this is nothing.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, basic training was basic training. I actually went to basic training with my best friend from the military, Chris. Him and I got together on the flight from Chicago to Atlanta
Mm-hmm.
wearing the same exact freaking outfit.
How weird is that?
Crap you not. Different hats. We had the same hoodie on, same jeans on, shoes were really close. Like, we look like freaking twins.
Did you see him and he saw you and you were like, we're going to be friends?
It was like the Spider-Man meme where you're like pointing at each other. I mean, before then, it was like, dude, really? Like, are you? And then everybody's like, you guys are both from Illinois and you didn't plan this? No, we didn't plan this. I don't know him. He lives an hour and a half from me. I have no idea who this dude is.
That is awesome.
So we end up actually going to 119 infantry together. And then I'm battle roster 326. He's battle roster 327. So we were with each other the entire time. Mm-hmm. We get through basic training portion, and this is a fun story. This is a good story to sprinkle in now. Basic training is basic training, infantry stuff, all that. But family day comes, and I had a girlfriend before I left. So, I mean, we're writing letters back and forth to each other. Love you, babe.
You were in love, weren't you?
Kind of. I was still kind of hesitant on it, but hey, anything to keep her on the hook at that point was a good hook to keep her on.
Right, because basic training sucks. You might as well have that going for you.
Hey, I need to have a letter coming from somebody because I got many people.
And it smelled nice, so what the hell?
And there's pictures. I always love that. Nothing too inappropriate that the drill sergeants can take, but there's pictures.
Just inappropriate enough. Anyway, so there's pictures.
So she writes me and she goes, hey, I met a girl through a Facebook group and her boyfriend is in 4th platoon. You're in 3rd platoon. So we're going to come down for family day for your guys' basic training graduation. I'm like, okay, sure. Who's this dude? So I can at least meet him. Mm-hmm. Like, I might as well know who he is before I end up hanging out with him. Dude's a complete douchebag. I'm like, why did I have to meet this guy? Didn't like him. Just like worst of worst dudes. He's your... I don't want to diss Wisconsin too hard because I live here now. But he's a douchebag Scotty, I would call him. Uh-huh. He just... I did not like him from the time I met him. But what I did like is his girlfriend.
Oh, this is going to end well.
So I did like his girlfriend. And I'm like, oh, man, who is she? Like, she really caught my eye. Like, I couldn't stop thinking about anything that 72-hour period. Like, my girlfriend, I was already planning on breaking up with her when I got done with basic training. But, like, I want to know who this is.
So I'm going to throw some army shit at you. So who's the douchebag now, AJ?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet at all.
All right, just making sure.
we go through, because infantry training is OSET, which you know, because Aaron went through pretty close to what I went through. So OSET training, so we do the 14 weeks in total at the same place, the same people. It becomes incredibly annoying. We get to week 12. Now, I had an Airborne Ranger contract. I declined the option because they had an investigation going on at jump school.
Oh.
Somebody got stuck in the towers. They shut down the school. It happens all the time. Mm-hmm. But what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to have to wait 3 to 4 weeks to go anywhere or do anything. They would have stuck me at airborne holdover, and I would have just cleaned bathrooms, swept floors, did CQ. I'm like, I don't want to do any of this stuff.
Right.
That's not appealing. That's not why I joined. I didn't know how valuable at the time, and that's the one thing I do wish I would have maybe talked to somebody about. How I would probably never get that option for Ranger, RIP, or Airborne School again. Looking back on all of it, because I really wish. I mean, my future would have been completely different than what it is right now, and I love my life. But I wish somebody would actually talk me down from what I was doing.
Right.
Looking back on it, so I tell them, "Hey, I'm waiving it. I don't want to wait. I don't want to do this. I want to go overseas. I want to be like literally in Iraq in 2 months. I want to be fighting on the ground. I don't want to be back here playing soldier. I want to be a soldier." So family day comes around for turning blue.
Mm-hmm.
I had my half brother put my cord on me. Biggest mistake of my life. I wish I would have had somebody else do it. Uh, my mother and stepfather come down because they're so proud of me.
Right.
You know, I've accomplished something. I'm a trophy now, so now they're really proud of me, and they love showing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized then that okay, I got orders for Fort Lewis, Washington. Never been to the state of Washington in my life. Never been out west in my life. This is going to be an extreme culture shock for me. And I'm just like, hey, can we just get home as fast as we can? I wish I would have never had them come. I wish I would have just got on a plane and flew to Fort Lewis. So I take 2 weeks of leave at that point. I go 4 in the hole because I think we only earned 10 while we were there.
Right.
Go up there and I got to backtrack. Sorry, I jumped in front of myself. Airborne, I declined it. Ryan Romaker, who is the guy from Fort Platoon,
Uh-huh.
also declined he was given an airborne option, so he decided to stay. And him and I have been talking since our basic training graduation.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking for a while. I probably shouldn't have said his name.
That's okay.
But he was talking about breaking up with his girlfriend, and I was already like, I am breaking up with mine. Like, I want. There's something weird about her. I just don't like it. I don't know what it is. But if I'm gonna go somewhere, I want to experience something new. I don't want to deal with this.
Right.
So he breaks up with his girlfriend. I break up with mine. I have not forgot about his girlfriend, but at the same time, it's not a top priority for me.
Yeah.
We go home on leave. Chris and I both are the guys that think we're cool, walk around with our PT jackets on, wearing pants, just stupid private stuff. And
it is too.
my mother reaches out to me and she's like, "Hey, do you know this girl named Danielle?" And I'm like, "I know a lot of Danielles. Like, who are you talking about here?" And she's like, "She said she had a boyfriend that was with you in basic training." I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of know who. Yeah, I know who that is." "Well, she wants to hang out with you sometime while you're home if you're free." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Now I turned 21 while I was in basic training.
Mm-hmm.
So I was all about living my life at that point. I'm finally legal. Let's go have some fun. So I drove up, or we had a birthday party for me in Madison. My family did at this place called, and I don't know if there was any in Michigan, Quaker Steak and Lube.
No, I've never heard of that.
Well, it doesn't exist anymore, so
Okay.
don't get excited.
I was like, I'll go find this place.
it was a pretty cool place back in the day. They had cars on lifts. It was like NASCAR themed. It was, I think one of the last ones that are around are actually is down by Bristol at the racetrack there. And I mean, they bring these gigantic pitchers out. They have taps on the bottom so you can drink beer. And I didn't drink a lot. I didn't really feel like being there. It felt kind of awkward having a family celebration for me because I was their new trophy.
Right, because you really didn't have this family up until this point anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
weird.
My family was my grandparents. And like, if I ever brought a girl over to my grandparents' house, they knew how like special or important that person was to me.
Yeah.
So May 5th, it's Cinco de Mayo, 2007. I remember this date extremely well. It's the date we have the birthday party. And I reach out to Danielle and I'm like, hey, what are you doing right now? Where are you? She's like, oh, I'm out bar hopping with Ryan's brother. Like, now you're hanging out with his brother? Like, where you at? She's like, I'm in Madison. I heard you live up here. Trying to find you. She's like, well, I'm down south actually. I'm like, oh, where? She's like, Edgerton. Well, Edgerton is where I live right now. Like this is where I am at this moment.
Okay.
And she's like, yeah, we're at this bar. I don't know. I'll send you the name of it. And I mean, we didn't have the Google Maps and stuff like
Right. She
that back
couldn't pin her
then.
location and all that fun stuff.
No.
Yeah.
So I had to find her. And I don't know how I did it, but I managed to do it somehow. I found her. We had a couple of loaded Coronas together. Um, End up going to a party later on at Chris's house, our Chris's friend's house, an hour and a half away that night.
Mhm.
Well, she's my wife now.
Fate. It was fate.
So, and it's really funny is the same bar that we had those drinks at was closed down for years.
Mhm.
I mean, probably from 2009 up until about 3 years ago, it was closed. They just reopened it 3 years ago, and our friends are the owners of it, and we go there all the time. And it was actually funny when they bought it. We were like, "Hey, could you guys slide us the keys one day before you remodel so we can go relive old times over here?" Like, and they were all about it. But
Yeah. Well,
so,
I want to ask you something too. You met her in basic training. You were dating someone. She was dating someone.
yeah.
But you were very, very attracted to her. Do you think that it wasn't just like this physical, I'm in boot camp, she's good looking thing? Do you think that like somewhere inside you were like, there's something special about this one?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like there was just something. Like I didn't know like I didn't know what it was. I couldn't put my finger on it. It was just something that just kept me like glued to thinking about who she was. I mean, I was the entire weekend, I was trying to impress her. I'm dropping down and doing push-ups for her when she says a certain word, just like goofing around. She'll say a word, next thing you know, I'm down on the ground doing push-ups. Like there was something, and that entire weekend, that was like my focus, I guess,
Yeah.
was trying to find out more. Like, who is this person? Like, we have pictures from when you're not supposed to go buy clothes when you're, on your leave time from basic training. You're supposed to stay in uniform. No, like, the first thing we did is we went to the Columbus Mall and we're buying clothes. Like, we're not goofing around. We're getting this done. And we did. And like, the entire time, like, we went to Victoria's Secret. Both the girls wanted to go there, and I'm sitting there goofing around, like holding up bras, taking funny pictures with her. Like I knew there was something.
Yeah.
I
Just
didn't know what it was, and
having
I
a good
wasn't
time. It
gonna.
was easy, right?
Yeah, and I wasn't gonna be that guy. I was finally experiencing freedom after so many months.
Uh huh.
I had a solid paycheck going. I'm not gonna blow all my money, but at the same time, I want to have a little bit of fun while I'm gone. Um, so yeah, there was something that stuck with me, and that's why Cinco de Mayo we call it our unofficial anniversary. We go back over to that bar now since they reopened, and we'll have drinks on Cinco de Mayo. So
That's
yeah,
very cool. That's awesome. So you had this great time with her, and I'm assuming at some point you got to take off and get back to the army.
yeah. So I don't remember the exact date.
Hmm.
We went back over. I had to report to Fort Lewis. That was a process in itself, I guess. Um, 525 replacement. They just stood up a new brigade at Fort Lewis. This is when Second Infantry Division was in command.
Hmm.
So you had second, third, fourth, and fifth. Oh, I'm sorry, third, fourth, and fifth brigades all at Fort Lewis. First brigade was at Camp Humphreys, and second brigade didn't exist. They were cases closed, colors case, whatever you want to call it. Uh, so I didn't know where I was gonna go. Um, Third brigade was already in Iraq. They were in Iraq at that point. Fourth brigade was already in Iraq. They've been there for about 3 weeks.
Hmm.
And then Fifth Brigade wasn't going to go to Iraq. They were scheduled to go to Afghanistan. So All of them were strikers. I had no idea where I was going. I could never decipher the paperwork. I ended up getting selected to go to 4th Brigade, 4-2 Striker Brigade Combat Team. I got assigned to the 4th Battalion, 9th Infantry Regiment, one of the oldest, most historic infantry regiments in the U.S. Army. Get there, and the first thing I'm greeted with is your standard issue corporal.
Oh, they're the
Because I'm on
best.
Rear D.
They're the best, aren't they?
Such a tool.
but
This guy,
but I
there was some
gotta
reason
I
he
gotta say
couldn't.
Fort Lewis is beautiful. I didn't mean to talk over you, but Fort
No,
Lewis
you're
is a
good.
beautiful place.
I love it there.
Yeah, regardless of the stuff you got to go through,
I mean,
I think it's a beautiful
outside
place.
of the base, there's a lot of noise, but
Yeah.
like it just, there was something about that first morning waking up
Uh-huh.
and seeing Mount Rainier in the background.
Yeah.
It just blows your mind. I've never seen anything that big in my life.
Yeah, it's inspirational almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right there. I'll have to send you a picture after all this at 7th Infantry Public Affairs Office took. They have the Follow Me statue where he's like pointing.
Yeah.
And that's at our main gate area. It's by the PX. And they got a picture. I don't know if it's a sunrise or sunset, but it has Mount Rainier in the background. Honestly, the most beautiful picture, and I have taken a lot of pictures because I tried a photography business.
Yeah.
And especially of my daughter, I love the pictures I've taken her. One of the most beautiful pictures I've ever seen. And it just, to this day, I see that. I'm like, oh, bad.
So beautiful Fort Lewis. So yeah.
So were you on North Fort then?
You know, I couldn't tell you. We flew into SeaTac.
Were you in the old World War II barracks?
Oh yes, that's where we were.
Yeah,
at.
you were on North Fort. That is awful. That is so bad.
It was terrible. Well, I mean, we were there, and you know, we checked in, but we spent the whole 2 weeks out in the field doing FTX stuff, jumping out of the back of Chinooks and all that cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was, but it was beautiful. I mean, I think I was in my barracks like a half a day the whole time we were there.
Yeah.
And then we were just sleeping out on the ground. It was pretty amazing. But so anyway, back to Fort Lewis. So you get there and you run into the standard issue corporal. So how'd that go?
Yeah. He was a tool. Like, man, the only thing that kept, like, I'm brand new, so I'm looking at this guy like, oh my gosh, I am like the lowest piece of crap ever when I'm standing in front of you. And then you have other guys who are specialists that came back. Now, my unit has already been blown up and lost 3 people. So I'm a replacement.
Yeah, it's going to be your turn pretty soon.
And I that was told to us very clearly by the Rear D Command Sergeant Major. You are a replacement. Somebody has died. You are going to be filling their spot. And I'm like, oh, way to make my life suck. Like, all right, got it, tracking. Let's do this thing. So I go through all my pre-deployment screenings. I get greeted by that corporal and introduced later on that night to a 3-story beer bong for the first time in my life. And I wasn't even there for 2 weeks, but I did fly Danielle out so that way I could have time. Like I think I slept in my barracks for 2 nights.
Yeah,
that entire 2 weeks. I got a hotel room. Her and I were there, hung out, did everything. I proposed to her while we were there. I know, private thing, getting ready to leave, propose to somebody. But I felt something there. Like there was realness, and I didn't want to lose that realness while I was going to be gone because I didn't know how long I was going to be gone. The unit was slated for an 18-month deployment. So I didn't want to lose something. I wanted her, and I wanted her to stay around.
Yeah.
So
this wasn't like a lot of guys get out of boot camp and they've been lonely and they meet this girl and you know they sleep together and blah 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 and all of a sudden it's let's get married and then it crashes and burns later on because it wasn't meant to be. It sounds like you were sincere, like you really wanted this girl to be there when you got back and you really did want to marry her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't known as the relationship guy before I was in the military. I had a lot of girlfriends and had a little too much fun.
Yeah.
So basic training kind of made me grow up. Like I already had enough life trauma experiences in my life before this. That basic training it finally showed me I could stand on my own 2 feet. I can make the right decisions. I can do the right things. I wasn't like an honor grad or anything at our basic, which I probably should have been because I was the baddest mother there, except for I wasn't the most physically fit guy because I didn't lift with them or anything like that.
Right.
But when it came to like, and this is gonna be later on in the story too, my tactical knowledge is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can pick things up real quick. I am the annoying person who's always asking questions because I want to know the answers. If I don't have the answer and you don't have the answer, I'm gonna find whatever book, manual, person has the answer for me, and we're gonna get this solved. So I pissed off a lot of people, rubbed lot of people's shoulders the wrong way. I lived right outside the drill sergeant's office in basic training, so I was always getting smoked as soon as they walked out. I didn't care. It was part of my growth.
Right.
That's how I looked at it.
Right.
So
So,
I wanted her to stay around.
yeah.
I didn't want to lose something. I only had close, tight knit relationships with probably 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to lose that.
Yeah. That makes
So
sense.
I proposed to her. We spent a lot of time out in Seattle, Tacoma, everything. Then the day came I was going to deploy, and she was there for it. It was her actual last day because I did end up finding a deployment window, so I got her a flight booked that night.
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted to be there when I got on the plane. And because she wasn't technically a family member, she couldn't go over to the other base or anything like that because we were going over to McCord to fly out of McCord. So she could only see me at Lewis before I left because I brought her on post.
Uh-huh.
Um, so 8 hours, no, 10 hours before I leave, we find out she's pregnant. Not enough stress already that I'm going overseas.
Wow. Yeah. That's whew.
She's pregnant too.
Uh-huh.
Holy crap. Longest flight of my life.
Yeah.
I have flown to Iraq and back many times. None have ever been as long as that one. Because, I mean, the sergeants there, the E5s were like, "Oh, we got to keep you on suicide watch. We're gonna put you right next to us in the seat up here." I'm like, "I'm not gonna kill myself. I'm just nervous as shit." Like that's the realism behind it. I just became an adult, and
Right.
now I'm gonna be a father. Like it just blew my mind. Like I'm younger than when my parents had me.
Yeah.
So it threw me off. But at the same time, I had the excitement of, okay, I have Danielle. Danielle's mine. Not only have I established now that she's mine, it's done and over with. We got this. Now we have a kid coming. Okay, reset your focus. We got to go overseas. So we fly to Iraq. Um, my unit is on, or my platoon is on their block leave when I get there, or their R&R, the 21 days that we would get for the 18-month deployment.
Yeah.
I'm greeted by a few people that were taking leave later on. And then my squad leader, who this is kind of unfortunate and fortunate in a way. So the person I was replacing would have been my squad leader.
Mm-hmm.
He, Staff Sergeant David Kuehl, died, IED explosion, IED mounted to a telephone pole. He was standing in the squad leader hatch of the Striker when it was hit by an IED. And this is right after they just got doing their left seat, right seat rides.
Yeah.
Bad situation. We're in a bad place. Tarmiya, Iraq. It's where the AQ funneled all their money for weapons in exchange there. The patrol base, about 6 months before I got there, when 28 Cav was there, the patrol base got blown up by a suicide-born VBIED. Took out a lot of people. Took out the patrol base. They had to build a brand new patrol base. So I get to Camp Taji, I'm meeting everybody for the first time. Staff sergeant, or he was a sergeant at the time. He wasn't a staff sergeant yet. I was there when he got pinned. Mm-hmm. Sergeant Andrew Imson, who just got back from Ranger School. He's been there for 9 months. I believe it was 9 months. He got hurt and had to be recycled. So he is as straight arrow Ranger boy as they get.
Yeah.
which was incredible and bad at the same time because I screwed with him so much
I'm
as a
sure
private,
I'm
and
sure he
I should
appreciated it.
not have. I got a green Power Ranger up there on the top shelf. I used to put a Power Ranger on his bed area,
Uh-huh.
and I called him my Power Ranger. Oh, he hated it. I got destroyed. Um, Turned into a really good friend of mine and a really good mentor throughout the rest of my career. Even though I didn't talk to him a lot, those times I did talk to him, it was just ecstatic. It was made my day, made my week, made my month. Because he ended up leaving us after our deployment and becoming part of SF. So he went to group. And he became a ghost at that point until he needed something from one of us, and then he'd
Right.
call us and we'd get back together. Um, so here I am, this brand new private, showing up with all these guys, guys coming back from leave, guys still on leave, guys who didn't go on leave, and I'm being that annoying guy. I'm asking questions. What do we do for this? What do we do for that? What is it like out there? I've never been out there. Why do I have to wear this stupid IDA when we have these brand new IOTVs? Now, here's another thing. The unit I went to 49 was the very first unit to have something called Land Warrior. Land Warrior was a digital computer system you wore on your body armor. So it was like an FPCB2 with a screen on your helmet, with a computer on your back, with a little controller that went down your side, satellite communications. You could see everybody on the battlefield. You could drop digital chem lights on the battlefield. You could attach scopes to your weapon to hold it around the corner and aim through your eyepiece. You could control robots through your little joystick controller, watching its feed through your eyepiece. All these fantastic things that you can do, throwing balls into rooms to clear them so you didn't have to go in and you could see the entire room in your eye.
Wow.
The problem was it didn't work half the time.
Yeah.
And it weighed like 30 pounds. So on top of your normal combat load, you would have to wear that. And I mean, I was a grenadier. So I carried a belt across my chest of all my HEDP rounds, smoke. We got non-lethals, which was fun to shoot at the range. We never shot them at people.
Right.
All these things. And Star Cluster rounds, that plus 210 rounds of 5.56. Plus I carried med kit. Plus I carried breaching tools. I was known as the mule because I was the youngest, the most in shape at that point, because I was already geared for basic at what I was going to be doing. So I mean, I was only like $180 at the time. I'm carrying almost my body weight in gear. And that just, eventually things change where not everybody wore the system. Leaders wear the system, but then snipers started figuring out, okay, this person's wearing this thing. That's what I need to aim at.
Yeah, they're the leader.
So all of a sudden, we started getting fake ones to put on our helmets that look just like it. So it was really cool being introduced to all that stuff because we were the most technologically advanced infantry fighting force ever at that point. You could be a ranger, you could be SF, but you don't have what we have. Like we can do more on the battlefield without keying our radio, without hand and arm signals. No, we just drop it and you go. So I learned all that stuff. I learned as much as I can. And right before we get to go out for our first mission, my first mission, and when I say mission, our missions were 5 days rest and refit at the patrol base, or I'm sorry, at Camp Taji, and then we'd spend 25 days at a patrol base. So first mission would be going from Camp Taji to JSS Tarmia, or Patrol Base North Tarmia. And they train me up. They take me outside. I've never wore night vision before. We're walking around Camp Taji in our area with all of our stuff on, doing hand and arm signals and using lasers with night vision. I'm like, this is insane. We did it like 3 or 4 times before we left. So they could get, and everybody was pissed because we got to train the new guy.
Right.
I'm the new guy, so I'm getting the brunt of all this. Had a couple of crappy team leaders. And my team leader was a real crappy one. And we're doing all this stuff, and I'm loving it because we're doing something. We're doing what I want to do. Other guys are like, dude, can we just like go watch Friends in our like room? Like, why we got to be here? And we didn't live in a room. We lived in a warehouse.
Yeah.
lived in a warehouse. They had it cordoned off for 5 platoons in there, so we lived in big group areas. So I meet a couple of guys, Troy Danahy, Brandon Lloyd, really good friends. Troy kind of has fallen off. He's still active right now. He's a first sergeant somewhere. Brandon, really good friend. I talk to him. Well, he drunk Facebook messages me quite often. And it's
He
usually
doesn't
at like,
drunk dial you. He drunk Facebook messages you.
yeah, it's usually at like 1 or 2 in the morning. He's down at Fort Polk right now.
Uh-huh.
He's getting ready to retire. He's gonna be going bouncing back over to Fort Stewart. Uh,
That sounds like some infantry shit right there. Drunk Facebooking people.
it gets more infantry than that. And
Oh, I'll
imagine
bet.
being in the barracks drunk with night vision, sticking IVs in each other. Like it gets real fun.
Practice is practice.
It is under the most strenuous conditions.
Right.
So I got those guys. I have another one, Brandon Parr, who's from Illinois. So I had a mutual connection with him, but he hated me. I loved it. He was going through some stuff where he was a team leader and he got like kicked out of the position and became our saw gunner, and it was just a messy thing. But so the first time we go from Camp Taji to Patrol Base North in Tarmia, we have 2 checkpoints that we go through that we physically get out of the vehicle and we clear, because the threat of an IED with command wire is so relevant. Still to this day, I drag my feet when I walk. Like it's just one of those things. Like I don't mean to do it, but that's how we cleared fields when my life was on the line. And if you're dragging your feet, you can snag up the wire. So first checkpoint, no problems, everything's good. Second checkpoint, we get blown up by an IED. And that's when my life changed forever. I knew what I wanted to be in. I knew what I wanted to do. And for the first time, I was scared and lost. I had no idea what to do. I had no idea what doing your 5 and 25s are. I had no idea of if a vehicle gets hit, you need to seek cover at this spot. None of that. I get out of the vehicle, I dismount because everybody dismounts. I just follow. I don't know where to go. I follow. And when I follow, I'm told to get up and hatch and get on the 240 Bravo. I'm like, what hatch? What truck? What 240? What are you talking about? And I physically get taken, placed in there. I am dizzy as crap. Placed inside this hatch on the 240. My glasses are fogging up. I can't see a damn thing. I mean, I bought the special Oakleys with the vent holes and everything. I threw the things off.
Yeah.
And here I am with night vision just sitting behind a 240. I don't know what to do. We had 2 guys get injured. Both had to be medvaced. We had to wait for recovery to come out and pick up the striker. We had to wait for EOD to come out to make sure we cleared the entire area. So my first mission, a simple movement, which takes no more than 45 minutes on average, lasted 8 hours. I saw the sun come up. It was crazy. And from that point on, I knew, okay, you're in it now. We're doing missions every 24 hours. I'm kicking in doors every 24 hours. We're finding guys. We're getting into firefights. We're medevacing people. I was in the thick of it. We finally made it. I finally was there. So that lasts for a long time. One of the biggest operations was Operation Headhunter that we had, and we combined with the 101st Infantry Division for that. And we cleared our entire city and surrounding areas within 72 hours. Every door got kicked. Every home got searched. Every cache was found. We did everything we could. No sleep. We lived off rippets. Like it was rippet after rippet. We had a funnel with PVC pipe in our truck that we would do rippet bombs. Like we don't sleep.
Yeah. And this all is, for someone who's not in the military, like that time on deployment, that stuff all just becomes normal.
Yeah.
Like when we talk about it, like when I talk to people about it, like if I'm talking to another veteran, it's like we have this conversation, right? But you talk to some civilian about the shit you did over there, and they look at you like you got like a second head growing out of your shoulders or something. It's crazy, but it's your normal. Like This is just life. This is how we do
It's
it.
casual.
Yeah.
It's casual life events. Like that first moment is what woke me up to, oh shit, this is my life.
Yeah. This is real. Like, this isn't a
Like
movie. It's
Black
not.
Hawk Down ain't got crap on watching that movie and being out here and doing it for real.
Right. Right. Because they're shooting at you.
Yeah. And that's, and the adrenaline that comes from that. Like that's, you can't replace that.
No. Many of
Like,
us have tried.
we've tried a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And you can't. It's a completely different fight or flight. Like, and there's no flight because I was told from day one, here's your 6 battle drills. And I think it was battle drill 3 is break contact. We don't do this one.
Right.
This one doesn't exist. So don't ever even think about break contact. Okay. And that's how I live. Honestly, that's how I live my life. I don't even break contact in my personal life. Mm-hmm. If adversity is in front of me, we're gonna get through it, and we're gonna charge. We're gonna get it done because I'm not gonna back away.
Normal people don't understand that.
No, they don't.
Because you're an aggressive asshole at that point.
Yeah,
right.
A lot of people do think that. Absolutely. I mean, it's realistic. My son thinks it at times, and it's like, dude, you just don't understand. The more you run from stuff, it's still gonna be there.
Right.
Take care of it now and get it over with.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't let fear dictate your life. You have to face your fears. And I mean, I think you and I learned that in a different setting than maybe our children have had to learn it, but that's something I've instilled in my kids as well. So how long were you there on this deployment then?
Okay. So I was there for 13 months. Now we ended up getting cut short, but I was in, this is where it doesn't get weird, but it was weird to me. Mm-hmm. So I actually went 9 straight months there. I'm sorry, 8 months. And then I took my 21 days of R&R so I could see my son born.
Okay.
During that time frame, I got married through the mail. They didn't order a wife through the mail, got married through the mail.
Wow.
Because in the state of Montana, you do not have to be a resident, but you can pay like $700 and you can have somebody stand in for you and do a double proxy marriage.
Wow.
It's so weird.
Just all about the Benjamins in Montana, huh?
Absolutely. So we got married in Montana, even though I've been in Montana now. Before I got married, I've never been in Montana in my life.
Okay.
So it was really funny is because I had a security clearance and my team leader didn't because he was a real tool bag. And not the greatest soldier by any means. And I have no problem saying Ian Vaughter's name. I had to escort him in brigade headquarters so I could turn in my marriage certificate to S1. I had to go with an escort. It had to be a team leader or above. He didn't have a security clearance. I did. That was a great moment in my life.
What a mess.
That was so nice. I loved it. When they were like, oh, yeah, Private McKinney is your escort, just so you know. So make sure you stay with Private McKinney. I'm like, oh, yeah, I got you.
Who's the boss now?
Yeah, right? I'll do more new. So I got married, and that was a huge thing because we were paying like $700 a month in insurance costs for her with the baby.
Yeah.
So instead of paying that out of pocket and watching my bank account drain, I mean, yes, overseas, tax-free, combat hazard pay, all that stuff's really nice. But as an E3, it's still not really nice.
No, it's not a lot of money, honestly.
No. So we got married, got that done. I come home for leave. I am greeted with like a hero's welcome. Like I remember walking through DFW, walking on the Sky Bridge, and everybody's clapping, and it's so awkward to me because I didn't do it for that. I did it because I had stuff I wanted to do.
Right.
I wanted to go face these guys in person. I wanted to give them a little bit of what I felt. So that was really strange. And then I get back here home, and same thing. Like everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, welcome home! It's so great what you're doing." And
isn't that just hard as hell?
And thank you for your service.
I've come to terms with that.
I can't. I
Uh,
still can't. My friends actually text me and make fun of me all the time.
I,
Veterans Day rolls on. Thank you for your service, AJ.
you
Like,
know,
oh, I hate you guys.
here's what you do, man. Just give them the old Chick-fil-A, right? It's the Chick-fil-A. They say,
My
thank you for your
pleasure.
service. My pleasure.
My pleasure.
Because
I'm gonna do
it
that
was
from
my
now on.
pleasure to do that. And I think it was your
Well,
pleasure to do it as well.
it was a job.
Yeah.
It's a job. I got paid.
Right.
It's not like I'm going over there. It's not like I got drafted
Right.
in Vietnam.
Right. Yeah, but nobody's blowing up the guy in McDonald's. You know what I mean? Like, it's a
Exactly. I get
job.
it.
It's a job, but it's a little bit
At
different
the
than just
same
a
time,
job.
though, and you always hear about the greatest generation being World War II.
Right.
We were all a bunch of volunteers too,
Yeah.
and that's what I hate. Like the greatest ever was World War II. Really, just because the government was really lacking on who they let in at what age because they skimmed the system. They're the greatest generation. If I could have went when I was 15, I would have too.
Yeah.
But
Well, hang on, because one day that will be the greatest generation. You know what I mean? Like it took a long time for the recognition of the things that people did in World War II. It took a long time for the recognition of the folks that went to Vietnam. And I think the folks like you and I, we're from different generations, but
mhm,
we served in that same general time. I think that's coming. But again, you and I both know we didn't do this for the recognition at all.
no,
But there, yeah. I don't know. I think our day is coming.
I just
Maybe.
think they'll look bad on our wars. That's the only problem.
Yeah.
Because that's why I'm hearing more and more these days is, well, why were we in Iraq? There wasn't no weapons of mass destruction. There wasn't this. I mean, we went there for oil apparently. Like, guess what? My friends that I lost over there did not go over there for oil.
Mm-mm. No.
Hate to break the news.
Well, and how did you feel? So I'm jumping ahead a little bit,
Yeah.
but I remember like I said, I stepped off the battlefield October 13th, 2007, day I'll never forget, and came home, chugged along, and then I watched on TV as our president said, "Oh, the war in Iraq is over," and I watched the same bad guys that I lost friends to, that some of my soldiers lost limbs to, were blowing up all the stuff that we gave our our lives for to protect, and we just handed it all back, and it all just blew up. And I felt like there was a part of me that said, "Yeah, what the hell were we there for?" I mean, I don't know if that's how you felt, but that's how I felt.
I well, I'm trying to look it up right now because I did a really smart thing back in 2013 or 12,
Mm-hmm.
and I uploaded all of my awards to a electronic Love Me book,
Yeah,
which I think when he gave that speech, I was on that 72-hour operation headhunter
yeah,
because I didn't see it until after I got home. Like, I didn't know he said the war was won and it's over. I had no clue.
yeah. We handed all that shit back to them, and they blew it all up. It was great. So,
Um,
so enough politics. So you get married, you come home, you're there for your son's birth, I'm assuming.
yep, made it
Uh,
for his birth. It was actually kind of a weird time because I came home, I drank way too much.
mhm.
Like, I mean, after all the trauma I just been through, I drank a ton. I mean, I don't think there was a night where I didn't have at least 6 beers. I was always running and grabbing more. I never did liquor back
Yep.
then. It was beer. Um, and then we realized that as we're getting closer, I think I got a week left. My son still hasn't came out. So Danielle gets induced within 24 hours. Here's Carson. Welcome to the world, Carson. Um, ecstatic, scared. I still got the first picture where I'm holding him all swallowed up and I'm like jacked from all the work and how I'm doing it. I'm like holding him like way out here, like I'm gonna break him.
You don't want to damage him.
Yeah. And that was a life changer. I was smoking at the time too, and it was winter in Wisconsin. It was awful.
Yeah.
So cold. Uh that was a life changer. But at the same time, something happened here in Wisconsin. We got a record snowfall where they actually shut down I-90 and which led them in the future, like on my exit, to put gates down where people can't get on the interstate.
Mm-hmm.
And they were bringing out food and water and other supplies in Blackhawks to people stranded on I-90. I
Wow.
was so freaking bored sitting around doing nothing because I mean, that adrenaline, I'm missing it. That alertness, I got nothing. I'm waking up at like 10 o'clock in the morning after drinking a 12 pack.
Mm-hmm.
I called the National Guard Center. Hey, I'm home on leave. Can I help you guys out? And they laughed. Like, no, you're on R&R. Enjoy your time. I'm like, no, I'm not enjoying my time.
Yeah.
Let me do something with you. Please, I volunteer as tribute. Like, I've been on many Blackhawks. Let me get on, drop something down, please. So that was nuts. And then I could tell that I needed to get back because I had one bad spiral where I drove down to Rockford, Illinois, had way too much to drink with a friend that was a bartender down there. Then she took me to another bar afterwards, and then I tried driving home. I made it 20 minutes before I pulled into a Motel 6 parking lot, and I passed out. I had my mother-in-law's phone because I didn't have my phone at that time because I'm overseas. Why would I need a phone?
Right.
Have hers, and I wake up to 74 missed phone calls. My son is 4 days old. We have family pictures in like 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you? That's all I heard. I just heard, where are you? And basically, I look around, I go, Motel 6 in, I think, Janesville. Like, I don't think there's one between Rockford and Janesville. I think I'm in Janesville. And she's like, stay right there. We're coming to get you. Little did I know, my wife's been up all night trying to reach me, crying, laying in her mom and dad's bed with our son. Like, just did not know what was going on. They've been calling police departments, jails, hospitals, trying to see if I'm alive. I'm there. I walk out of the car. Nobody says a word. I just get hugs. And I'm like, oh, this is weird. Get in the vehicle.
Would
go
you
home.
would you have felt better if they had yelled at you? You know what I mean? Like,
I probably would have.
Yeah.
Honestly, because that's the life I've been in now for the last year at that point. Right. I mean, almost year is I messed up, scold me, get on me. And the way I was brought up, yeah, I'm ready to get yelled at. I'm ready for I have never done something so wrong and been given a hug.
Yeah. They just loved you. That was all.
And I'm like, wow, this just blew my mind.
Yeah.
So I go home with a hangover, sleep for like 3 hours, get dressed, look at our family pictures. You can never tell what happened 6 hours prior to that.
You know, that's one thing that we're good at. It's like no matter how shitty it is, like we're really good at covering that up.
Drive on.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that whole mentality. Drive on. I don't care how bad it sucks. Pop some ibuprofen, drink some water, and let's go.
Drink water, rub dirt in it. You're going to be fine.
Exactly. Yeah. You're fine. Take a knee.
Yeah. So you got these great family pictures, but no one knows the story behind them bad boys.
Not a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I mean, we have plenty of them throughout the house, but a lot of people are just like, oh, look how young you were. Oh, look at Danielle and Carson. And it's like, if you only knew. I don't even cue it up. If she wants to cue it up, she can have it. I don't want to. I don't want to take any credit for any bad things I did. She can blame it on me and do it herself.
Yeah.
So then 2 days later, I fly back to Iraq. Life is different again. Like, I've changed again. Now I'm an actual dad, so I look at things differently. I look at the way I handle kids overseas differently. Not that I did anything bad before, but I've seen what happens overseas with kids, especially ones that terrorists don't like and what they're doing.
Yeah.
I've seen it firsthand. Now it just hits me a little bit differently because I've had my own flesh and blood in my hands. Like, this is crazy. So we go from Camp Taji. We relocated while I was gone. We're in a whole different cob now. We're up in Spiker to Crit. We went from being north of Baghdad to we're all of a sudden all the way up north. And I'm taking different flights, different places, taking it all in. And the reception compared to, hey, everybody, I'm Private McKinney. I'm the new soldier. Compared to, hey, I'm back from R&R. light years different.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody was so happy to have me back. Dude, tell us what happened. How's your kid? How's all this? Blah, blah, blah. Great reception. And that's what another one of the reasons why I joined is for that. I wanted to have that team mentality. I wanted to be welcomed. I wanted the people to miss me.
Yeah. Do you think that's deeper than team? That's more like family.
It's family. It's
Yeah.
totally family.
Yeah.
So I coach high school football right now, and I've been coaching for 10 years. I'm trying to make and I know this is probably later on in the conversation, but I'm bringing it up now. I'm trying to make my way into the college ranks. Mm-hmm. And football and the military are so similar. So similar. Everybody has their role. It takes a team to get the role done. If one person fails at their role, another person can help pick them up and get it going again. But we need everybody in the striker unit. The symbology behind it is so crazy. Yeah. 11 players on one side of the ball in football. There's 11 members in one striker squad team. I can't make it any better than that.
Right.
Like it lines up for me. So when I get back and I get that reception, I'm like, this is so great. Like, this is what I wanted. All right. But seriously, I'm ready to get back to work. What are we doing? So the mission cycle completely changed on us now. We're under the authority because 2nd Infantry Division, since the headquarters is in Korea, the first portion of the deployment, 25th Infantry Division was in charge of us. Great. Then I think 1st Cav took us over for a little bit. And then when I get back, the 101st is now in charge of us. They're the parent unit. Uh-huh. Like, bouncing around all these units is crazy. So we went from the previous time doing 25 days out and 5 days back to if you go out for 30, you come back for 30. What? Like, this is weird.
Yeah, how does that work?
I'm like, this is insane. Like, guys, we got what? So whatever time we spend out, we come back for. So we would do all these, like we brought up earlier about, or I brought up weapons of mass destruction. There's a chemical plant in the north portion of Iraq near Tikrit, Sahara Desert area. It's called the Muthana Chemical Factory. It's where mustard gas was made for Saddam. We tried bombing it during the initial invasion. They dropped a JDAM that never went off. So for part of our missions, we were out there watching a road that was being repaired right next to the Muthana Chemical Factory. So we had to take all our NBC gear out there with us. We're just getting ready for, that bomb to go boom and mustard gas everywhere.
Right. You just never know when that's going to go off.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't. So, I mean, to the point where, like, even the enemy presence was so high in the area, we were digging ranger graves. I don't know if you know what a ranger grave is.
Yeah, it's shallow depression, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. We dug it for sleeping.
Yeah.
We all had our own little ranger graves. And, like, we had no cover out there. We went from a very urban area to all of a sudden we're out in the middle of nowhere. Like, the water wells that they dig out in the middle of nowhere go about 100 feet deep, and it's a rectangle, and then there's a straight drop off one way that goes down to the well. Mm-hmm. You're driving in the middle of a sandstorm in a striker and you don't see that vehicle drops 100 feet. Like, all kinds of new things that we're just not ready for. But that portion was pretty chill up until Bakuba started popping off pretty bad. And Bakuba was east of Tarmia. And we were just getting ready to go home. We're at Cobb Spiker. We got all of our connexes packed up. Got the strikers ready to go. And we get a warno saying that we might go to Bakuba and fight and get extended. And we're like, oh, great. Here we go. Like, finally, like, yes, I do want the action, but yeah, I'm kind of ready to go home for a little bit now. I'm at that point. I want to see my kid.
Yeah, enough's enough.
Right? Like, can we pause, please? They end up canceling that, but we have one more stint at this really small patrol base. And okay, whatever. Let's just do it. They got a good gym. They got decent food. It's only us, some medevac guys, EOD, some SF guys, like, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. Let's go out there and hang out for a little bit. So we go out there. Um, the day before we're supposed to leave was a very impactful day of my life. I get woke up at 9 o'clock after we all just spent all night watching everybody huddled around on a cot together with a iPod speaker, the iPod in the middle, standing straight up vertically and watching a movie on that itty bitty little screen, all of us together. We get woke up and say we have a mission. And I'm like, yeah, we're on QRF. Bullshit. We don't have a mission. That's not. We don't have that. You're lying. Until everybody's putting their gear on and I'm the only one laying in my bed. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We're supposed to be leaving in like 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Go out to the truck, get briefed up on, okay, we don't really know much of anything. We're going to get in the vehicles. We're going to start rolling because they need QRF, which is quick reaction force for those who don't know. We need the QRF out here now. Okay. So about halfway through our drive, and it took about 40 minutes to drive where we were driving. About 20 minutes into it, we get word that there's Kiowa helicopters engaging a bongo truck. And a bongo truck, they're becoming popular in the United States now for some reason with social media.
Yeah, I don't like it at all, but
they're absolutely awful. But this bongo truck is driving around. It was on a BOLO list. Be on the lookout for. And the Kiowas are engaging it, and they're engaging the Kiowas. They're shooting AKs, RPGs, and PKC machine guns at them. We're like, what the hell? Like, all right, well, we're going to get out there, and it ain't going to be crap, so we might as well just get out there. A sandstorm hits right as we get there. Okay, we find the bongo truck. Bongo truck has a melted RPG body to it. Okay, we don't have to worry about an RPG. These guys are probably dead, gone somewhere. We go to this local farm. I mean, it's not even 5 minutes from there. There's a couple of buildings there, but it's like the only thing that's in the area. Mm-hmm. So we go out there. Our third squad dismounts. They go check the buildings. My squad leader, we didn't have our truck. Something was wrong with our truck, so we're in our platoon sergeant's truck. My squad leader was like, hey, I'm sick of being in this damn truck. Let's just get out and sweep this field. It was like a soybean field or some weird like that. Wheat, something they had growing there. And we start clearing the field. And the way we do it is, I wish I had a drawing board. So we do a squad column wedge.
Yep.
All right. So we were down a team leader. We were down a machine gunner. I think we were down one more person too. So our squad leader took over the alpha team. Mm-hmm. Or Bravo team. Bravo team took lead. Alpha team took rear. We didn't have the squad leader in the middle. So it was Sergeant Impson, Danny Heat, and myself in the front in the lead. So we're walking, and all of a sudden we hear pop, 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 pop from our right. We turn right, and there's a guy with an AK sitting up. Danny Heat takes a saw, eliminates the enemy. Mm-hmm. Enemy catches fire.
What?
Why is he catching on fire? It doesn't click with us. We're like, all right, whatever. Continue clearing the area. Like, clear threats now. Now we're in, Alpha team push that way. Bravo, we're going to keep going. So we keep going because we knew there was multiple men. We keep pushing, and all of a sudden here, pow, pow, pow. PK machine gun right in front of us. Not even 30 meters away. Just spraying at us. React contact. Get down. Call out distance, direction, description. Return fire. That's all we did. I sat there on my knee. I shot probably 2 magazines worth. I don't know if my shots were accurate. I shot a few HEDP rounds, and I just would not stop until they told me to cease fire. Cease fire, cease fire, cease fire. Squad leader tells me he wants me to bound up with them. So we bound up. The reason why the first guy caught on fire is because they're all wearing suicide belts. Oh. So we back off, back off, back off. Takes EOD an hour and a half to get out to us. So they come clear the bodies. I remember sitting in the back of the Striker after this all went down. We had the 50 cal on him just in case he moved. I was sitting there like, I need a cigarette. I need a cigarette. I need a cigarette. I go to light one up. My squad leader slaps it out of my hands. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, you need to chill. You need to chill right now. And I mean, I've been in fights.
Mm-hmm.
This was different though. Like this was that moment that I thought I always had coming because how close the dude had a 200 round drum. So it blew my mind. Danny and myself received Valor Awards that day. That's a day that changed everything. I also, our platoon leader, bless that man's heart, called me up as KIA on the radio.
Oh.
What he actually said was enemy KIA, and our talk tried confirming with him McKinney KIA, and he just said Roger. So after everything gets done, we all get loaded up. We drive back the 1 hour at this point. I think we even blew a tire or something on the way back because we hit concertina wire somewhere. So we had to change that, and we get back, and my entire company is behind the truck waiting to carry my body off. Wow. Everybody's like, what the hell? Why are you guys so mad at me? You're supposed to be dead. Like, that's not very nice.
No, not at all.
My CO was so pissed.
Yeah.
So that was our very last mission of 2008. May of 2008, I believe it was. Late April, beginning of May 2008, somewhere in there. We ended up getting the Valor Awards 2 years later on our second deployment to Iraq because they got upgraded, they got downgraded, they got upgraded, they got downgraded, they got upgraded. Company commanders changed. Like, it was just a stupid process.
Administrative processes.
So, and then the second deployment was a year later. That didn't really. We were the last combat brigade deployed to Iraq.
Yeah, so you're kind of doing cleanup and pull out and all that stuff, right? I mean,
so we were still assigned combat operations for the first 8 months of our deployment. And then we were there to support the elections that happened. We did that transition from Operation Iraqi Freedom to Operation New Dawn.
Yes.
So we supported them during the elections. We still were finding IEDs, conducting raids on IED building facilities. I actually got changed. I went from being just your standard infantryman to a team leader, then from team leader to the battalion command's personal security detail. I did a lot of vacationing, it seemed like, because I was going to all the big bases. I was going to see things like the ziggurat in Iraq, the stairway to heaven, they call it. Abu Ghraib is where we were operating out of that area at that time. Then I got transitioned to the talk. So I worked in our talk, and that was a life-changing experience because as much as you can see about what goes on the ground, the strategy, the communication, and the resources, where those come from, when you see that firsthand and you know what you're operating with on the ground, changes your tactical insight, I guess. Because yeah, you could tell me you have Reaper drone flying overhead. I can't see it. You can see it.
Right.
Now I know, as a guy who was on the ground in those situations, I know how to talk to somebody, be like, hey, Reaper sees this at your 3 o'clock, 300 meters away. 2 crows, military age or MAMs, 2 MAMs in this area going this direction. All the description I could give them, I'd give them. I would overflow them to the point they don't want to hear me anymore. But that was really cool to see that side, because then I transitioned when we got back. Actually, I got to back up. The last patrol. We did the combat patrol from Baghdad to Kuwait. I was in charge of putting all the graphics together for every unit in theater on an FPCB2 or a Blue Force tracker.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
That was probably about 70 files, lots of dots connecting roadways, lots of calling other JSSs, patrol bases, COBs, FOBs, other branches, a lot of SIPR network. Like I had to make sure this was like a 2-month process easily to get all this done.
Right. And this was all for deconfliction, right? Like you.
Yes, it was. Okay. So we needed to have places to stop.
Yeah.
So we needed to have places to rest, refuel, refit, anything like that. And it wouldn't be for more than 12 hours. It'd just be a quick splash. Let's go. get it going, get the people out of the vehicles. But the problem was we didn't have times and deadlines of when bases were going to close. So we'd be rolling into an area, and all of a sudden you call the one patrol base trying to enter their AO, their battle space, and they're no longer there. It's been handed over to the Iraqi army. We can't communicate with them.
Right. That's not comforting.
So that all that work for 2 months, and I think maybe half of the information was still valuable at that point and usable. So then we came home, and that was the best welcome home, because the first welcome home was okay. The second welcome home, my son knew who I was. He was walking and running and talking.
Yeah.
And it was awesome, because I live a little bit. Live. When it comes to military mannerisms and uniform code, I'm a little lenient, I guess. Rolled PC,
Yeah.
blouse by boots all the way down, because guess what? I'm not airborne, so I don't need them bloused all the way up. Like, I'm a ground pounder. I get it. I rock those things down low. My son knew exactly who I was, and I got the video still today of him running from the bleachers at Fort Lewis, the gym, Martinez gym, to see me with my boots bloused the way they were, staring at my feet only, running in my direction.
Oh.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, that just got promoted sergeant during that time, got the Valor Award, insightful life lessons with being in tactical operations in S3, learning how to be diplomatic with the command team. Like, that deployment, although it sucked now looking back at it, and of course, like I said, nothing happened. A lot actually happened that deployment. I learned a lot about the Army, myself, our role. Whereas the first one, it was the Wild West, and let's just wreck shop and get it done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So let's take a 2-minute break. Just leave everything on.
Yep.
That way I don't have to do editing. But yeah. So all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've reached that magic age of 59 and almost 60 where I got to take a break.
You're good.
I'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Well, no. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. All right. No problem. All right. I'm back. That reminds me when we were, so I was in Mosul.
Okay.
And we were going from Mosul to Tikrit for a meeting with our battalion commander. Yep. And like halfway there, it was a long ass drive too, but halfway there, everyone had to go to the bathroom. So we pull off in this little farm right there with a bunch of sheep, and we're all getting ready to go to the bathroom. And now I was the company commander, right? So I'm supposed to be like smart, but I really wasn't. Anyway, we get out, and I go to take a leak, and I forget that I've got this stupid vest on with the twigs and berries protecting everything, and ended up pissing all over myself.
You're not the only one that's done that.
in front of everyone. So yeah,
Yeah.
not the only one, but it just wasn't pretty. I'll never forget that. They were very gracious to me.
I forgot to say earlier too, when we were talking about Land Warrior,
Uh-huh.
so the IOTVs were actually made for the Land Warrior system.
Oh,
The
okay.
Army was not going to indoctrinate or incorporate that in all the forces until they saw how successful the Ripaway was
Uh-huh.
and how much more comfortable it was.
Yeah, it was easier on your shoulders and your back,
Oh,
really, because
absolutely.
it distributed the weight.
It was
Yeah.
nice because I mean, I wore that stupid, oh my gosh. I had that thing, the Velcro was so worn out, the buttons would never stay. So everything kept falling.
Yep.
And there was never a good way to like lay your stuff out. And I mean, obviously, as an infantry guy, you got to be able to access everything.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you can't put stuff on your back. You can't do any of that. And like even my plate carrier hanging up on the wall now is set up the exact same way my IOTV was because we had so much space to work.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a whole different ball game. Unfortunately, we didn't get to partake in that. But all right. So you get back home. You're at Fort Lewis. Your family greets you, and so what happens next?
So right before, okay, and I forgot to bring this up. So between the two deployments, I re-enlisted.
Okay.
My first time. I re-enlisted for Choice of Duty Station, and that was Fort Stewart, Georgia. During that second deployment, we changed AO or handed over AO to 3rd Infantry Division. I did not like them. I did not like their tanks. I did not like anything to do with them. So I went back to my retention officer and I was like, yo, what can we do about this? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, hey, I don't want to go to Fort Stewart anymore. He goes, all right, well, you burned your CONUS option. The only thing you can do is go OCONUS now. I'm like, okay, OCONUS. Italy, Germany, Korea, Hawaii, and Alaska, right? He's like, yeah, that'd be your options. I'm like, let's go to Hawaii.
Yeah, why not?
Let's go to Hawaii. You know, let's go live in vacation land for 3 years. You know, it can't be that bad. I got a friend over there right now. It'd be great to link up with him, Chris.
Uh-huh.
Chris got stationed there. So I'm like, this would be great. I can link back up with him and like, awesome. Love it. So we get back from that deployment. I had to re-enlist again because I didn't meet the time requirements to go to Hawaii. So I can't remember what option number it is, but the retention officer is like, I've never seen a person have to re-enlist this many times. Later on down the road, they said this. I think it was in Hawaii. This many times for this re-enlistment option as you have, and I'm like, oh, it just sounds like I'm getting the shaft right now, man. Apparently, but so yeah, we get back. Transition was a lot easier than the first deployment. The first deployment, I started drinking heavily again when I got back. We lived in a place called Puyallup, Washington, which is about 35 minutes from Fort Lewis. Had a great condo. I'd walk out on my patio. I could see Mount Rainier. It was beautiful. Then they started building a neighborhood across the street from it. Pissed me off.
Right.
Taking my good view because it was an open field.
Yeah.
But what I didn't know when we first moved back on that first deployment is there was a shotgun range down the street from our house. And they do night fires.
Oh.
So I'd be sitting out in the back patio, like having a few drinks, and I would spike right to, combat mode. Thank God I didn't have any guns at that point, like personal firearms. The first time that happened, I remember my father-in-law spent about $600 at the Class 6, stocked up our place, drank too much, heard the gunshots. I ran all over my condo looking for my M4. It was so, going from OSET, having your M16, which later I got a 240 in OSET. I was a gunner in basic. Then to having my M4 in Iraq, I was lost without it. I mean, that's my wallet. Where's my wallet at?
It's so I, not to put too fine a point on it, but when you return, from a combat deployment, there's like this, like you could be sitting at dinner and everything's perfectly normal, and all of a sudden this panic sets in, like, where's my weapon?
hypervigilance.
Yeah, you're like, where's my weapon?
It
Where's my
just
weapon? Where's my weapon?
all
And
of a
then you're
sudden
like,
it
I don't
just
have a weapon.
yep, absolutely. All of a sudden you're just like, whoa, it is so embodied and so part of you.
Yeah.
It's every time we went on. I mean, go to the chow hall, carry your weapon. You got to carry a magazine with you too in case the base gets ordered in.
Hmm.
Got to have your PT belt. Okay, I've never panicked for my PT belt. I have panicked for my rifle.
The only piece of people that panic over a PT belt are sergeant majors. I'm just going to say that out loud. They're the only people that panic over
the
that.
new PT jackets. I mean, they're not new anymore, but I remember when I got it at Fort Knox with the big yellow stripe chevron. They still make guys wear PT belts. Like they went from the gray jacket,
Yeah.
which okay, the gray really didn't do anything, but then they made a gray version that if you shine the light on it, it looked like ACU reflecting.
Yeah.
Okay, that should eliminate the PT belt. No. And then they make this one. I mean, I remember we started out basic training with the marshmallows. Like,
Yeah.
we had the marshmallows. Like, okay, a PT belt, obviously, we're wearing sweats. Like, you're not going to see us. But yeah, and then the yellow. I remember being at Fort Knox doing PT for recruiter school. And it's like, what are you talking about? We got to wear a PT belt. Don't you see these sweet new Chevron PTs that I just paid like $300 to get? And you're still making me buy a $7 PT belt? Are you kidding me?
You know, there's two things that I do now. I do put my hands in my pockets, especially when I'm around people who I know are retired sergeant majors. And I don't wear an effing PT belt anywhere. In fact, I don't own one. Yeah, it's crazy.
So
anyway,
I do have one on my rucksack still.
Uh-huh.
I have one on my rucksack in the basement. Now at Fort Lewis, they made us, we called them tramp stamps. They made us put stencil on the back of our PT belts with our motto for our units. And they made us put rank on them too, because they could never tell what rank you are out when you're PTs.
Right.
You had to have pin on rank, and you had to have Manchu, like a tramp stamp on the back. I got that PT belt somewhere. That thing just stays locked up because I don't want anybody ever seeing it.
Yeah, it's worth keeping though.
So yeah, I mean, just the panic of the weapons. So I mean, like when I got back from the second deployment, everything was normal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even the first deployment return, my in-laws and wife drove from Wisconsin to Washington in like a 4-day time span. And they pulled in like literally hours before I returned. And I almost died in the vehicle because my father-in-law fell asleep driving back to our place. Like
Jeez.
I'm kind of used to life or death situations.
Yeah.
So I always gave him crap for that. I'm like, dude, I just got home and you're trying to kill me already. You work for the terrorists now? Like, what's up, bro? But that second return just it felt normal. It felt fine. It felt good. I felt accomplished. I was ready for the next. So I kept looking for the next deployment. So I knew I was going to Hawaii. Already knew it. I had like 2.5 months to get ready to go to Hawaii and get everything stitched up, ready to go. Shippers moved in or signed on to move our stuff because my wife never kept a place when I was deployed. She always moved back home.
Mm-hmm.
So we would send our stuff back home. So our stuff's at the house ready to go. It just needs to be packed up and shipped. So, and I never used my home of record move ever. So I used my first home of record move from Wisconsin to Hawaii. I got a sweet new Harley Davidson motorcycle I got to ride on during that time frame. Trusted them to pack it up and ship it to me. That was a mistake. Mm-hmm. Then we get to Hawaii. We live in a hotel underneath Nimitz Highway in Hawaii for 45 days. Do everything you possibly can do on the island in 45 days.
It's an island.
And it's just boring then.
Yeah.
Like you're so used to being able to go places, do things, get out of your area, experience something new. That when you're trapped on that island that's the size of your average county in a state and half of it's a mountain, mm-hmm. There's nothing to do and it's overpopulated and it's expensive. Like the pay was great. I mean, you're getting your base pay plus I think I was getting $3,200 or $3,600 a month for housing. You're getting your COLA pay, the $1,200 supplement. Like, yeah, I was making $6,000-$7,000 a month, but I was lucky if my bank account had $500 in it at the end of the month.
Yeah, because you were spending it. You had to.
I mean, and then also the government shutdown happened when I was over there, and gas skyrocketed in all places. Hawaii,
Yeah.
it was like $7 a gallon. We weren't getting paid. I was racking up star card charges, paying for gas and basic necessities. It was crazy. I mean, and then our thank God the place that we lived at, it's called Iroquois Point. It used to be old naval housing,
Mm-hmm.
right next to a Marine Corps firing range, right by Pearl Harbor. Like, I could go on a run. I had a personal beach, but I could go on a run to the other side of our neighborhood, and I could watch the submarines driving or float into Pearl Harbor, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, but they were such a good neighborhood and so military related. They're like, hey, guess what, guys? If you can't pay your rent because of the shutdown, don't worry about it. We'll get you back when you get your back pay. It's fine. And a lot of other places obviously aren't like that, civilian market. So it was like great that we crappy living there, but at the same time, it was good living there for that reason.
Yeah. Good people.
So I move into a house. I get assigned to 114 Infantry, good old Golden Dragons. They are deployed in Iraq because we were on. It's crazy how that works because 114 replaced me when I was in Tarmia, my first deployment. So I knew I wanted to go to a unit. My old company commander was an S3 at 127, the Wolfhounds, and I thought about going over there, and I was like, I don't know, I really don't want to be probably with him. He's pretty flamboyant. We always kind of thought he was batting for the other team. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but back then, infantry, army, like
Yeah, it was.
we didn't
It
want
was a
anything to
different
do with
time.
that.
It was a different time.
We didn't want that.
Yeah.
And he was, I mean, we always thought it was a great cover up because he was married to a Seahawks cheerleader, which we loved when she came around the company. Like it was great.
Yeah.
So I get assigned to 114 and they're coming back from Iraq. And I'm like, well, this kind of sucks because I want to deploy. And if they're coming back from Iraq right now, that means with President Obama and the way things are going, the deployment cycle is going to be like 3 or 4 years before they go anywhere. And that might be right when I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. So I waived my dwell time and I get transferred over to 3rd Brigade. 3rd Brigade is getting ready to go to Afghanistan. This is also during the troop down draw for how many they're sending overseas.
Right.
So they're only sending like half of a platoon, but they need NCOs, and they need NCOs bad. So I go over there, I volunteer. I'm like, all right, let's get this thing rolling. I'm E5 promotable now. It's an automatic promotion as soon as I get over there. Let's get this rocking. We find out my wife's pregnant again. So now I have another child on the way.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, it's probably pretty selfish. My wife got in really good shape, and I wanted to have another kid.
Uh-huh.
I came from a family of like all boys, and I really wanted a girl. And I told her I probably wouldn't stop until we got one. Because sons are awesome. Sons are great. I'm a son. I have a son. But there's something different about having a daughter. And I wanted that in my life. And I needed that in my life. I didn't know how bad I needed it, but I needed it.
You know, I have a cousin that had 6 daughters trying for a son, so that thing could go sideways on you pretty bad.
It can, yeah. But I thought I was going to be batting like 800 for boys nonstop. Yeah. So, I mean, I was like, hey, we get another boy. That's great. Let's try for another girl. Like, I could deal with boys much easier. So, as I'm in processing with 3rd Brigade, they mess my orders up. There's 2 McKinneys in 2nd Brigade for 25th. One is Corporal Jeremy McKinney, who is coming back from Iraq. Mm-hmm. And then there's me, Sergeant McKinney, who just got to the unit. So the brigade messed up the orders. They were trying to send him over to 3rd Brigade. That didn't work. Mm-hmm. So I get a call from the Sergeant Major downrange. Never in my life would I have thought this. I get a number pop up, an 800 number. And this is before spam filters, blockers, all that stuff. I answer it. Hey, this is Sergeant Major so-and-so. I'm the command Sergeant Major for 3rd Brigade, 25th. Hey, Sergeant Major, why are you calling me? You're in Afghanistan. Like, why? Well, I heard you waived your drill time. I heard that you're trying to volunteer to come on a deployment with us, which we would love to have you. But Brigade S1 has informed me that your wife is pregnant. Yeah, wife's pregnant. Yeah, we just don't think it'd be a great option for you to come because your wife is pregnant and she's going to be alone in Hawaii. Like, well, Sergeant Major, I understand that. My wife and I have discussed this for a long time. It's not like this is an easy decision, but the deployment is also only 6 months long.
Right.
Like, I really want to get to Afghanistan. Like, I've been to Iraq twice. I need to get back to something that I know. Otherwise, I'm not doing my job. No, sorry, we can't help you out. But we look forward to seeing you when we get back, and if not, we'll get you sent back over to Second Brigade. And that's what happened. I ended up getting sent back to Second Brigade. The unit already came back. 114's back. They've been back for like 2 months now. I was going nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wanted it. It was killing me that I couldn't have it. I was depressed. I actually was kind of like AWOL for like 2 weeks, even though I wasn't AWOL. I was just hanging out on the beach drinking beer because I couldn't get over the fact that I got told no, it's something I really wanted. Then my daughter's born, and that changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I was as a person changed. I was more gentle. I wasn't as strict. Um, my perspective changed a lot. How I see things for what they are. Like, I thought Carson did it to me. No, Wrigley really did it to me.
Uh-huh.
Wrigley made me a softie. And yes, Wrigley is in Wrigley Field. Not spelt the same way, but Wrigley.
That was going through my head. Like, is this Wrigley Field?
Yeah. I'm a huge Cubs fan. So
Oh.
been since I was born, like born and bred in it. But so I embrace being with Second Brigade now. Second Brigade did not like me, or 114 anyways. 114 Charlie Company did not like me. I was an outsider. Again, that transition phase. I dealt with it as a private. I knew what I was getting into now. So I was like, yeah, you want to be a dick to me? I'm going to be a dick back to you. Like, that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
You don't like what I have to say? Guess what? Your striker unit sucks compared to the one I came from. Like, you want to fix stuff? There's a reason why your brigade or your battalion commander is coming to me telling me to write an SOP for you guys because you suck. That's standard operating procedure for those that don't know. But I was very to the T. Like I said, I wasn't the fastest guy. I wasn't the strongest guy. Tactics, procedures, please. I'll school you on any of those. So that's what I brought to the table. They may be a team leader with first platoon. First platoon. That was the one I was in the first. First platoon. Get there, do that. I had a really bad squad leader. I was a team leader. I was the. There's a meme out there where soldiers holding back missiles and knives and grenades. So that's what I did for the like my soldiers for the squad leader, and even the other team. The other team, I think I had an E4 as a team leader, and I'm like, dude, your squad leader is a tool. Like, I'm telling you right now, and Aaron would attest to this. Staff Sergeant RJ Naputi from Guam, not the greatest of leaders, kind-hearted Guam dude, but military-wise, not the greatest.
Not a bad guy, just not a leader.
Yeah, he had no business being a leader. Yeah. He was way too strict. He was trying to be an 80s style Marine Corps leader. Like, nobody likes you, dude. And you're not going to relate to anybody being that way. So I end up being under him for a while. I make him look incredibly good with everything I'm doing. As far as battalion goes, brigade goes, they know me. I hated that they knew me, but they knew me. And I ended up getting made weapons squad leader, a senior E6 position, as soon as I graduate from warrior leader course, or BLC, basic leaders course.
Yeah.
They came to me about a week. I think it was a week before we graduated. They bring in your local leadership team. So it was our new platoon sergeant and another squad leader in the PL. They're like, hey, we really need you to be on your damn A game. I was still having a drinking problem, so I was a little bit heavier than I should have been. So I didn't make tape the first time,
Mm-hmm.
but I made tape at the end of WLC, and we would go home on the weekends. We weren't stuck in the barracks like how it was previously and how it is now after.
Yeah.
We'd go home on the weekends. So I really had to watch myself, and I did. I made tape. Everything was great, height and weight, perfect. And that's the only reason why I didn't make it as honor grad for the cycle, is because I busted tape the first time. And staff, the cadre were pissed about it. They're like, "That's so bullshit, man. This guy's the guy." Like,
Right.
they hated it. But so platoon sergeant, PL, squad leader come up to me and they're like, "Hey, you need to get your shit together because you're going to be weapons squad leader when you get back." And I'm like, "What?" Like, that's senior E6. Like, why are you making me that? Why don't just give me a regular rifle squad? Nope, you're going to the top. I'm like, all right. So I second in command of the platoon. Then, all right, I'll take it, and I did. And I mean, that's still 1-1-4. 1-4 is, or Charlie 1-4. Sorry, Charlie 1-4. So the 1-4, first platoon, number 4, weapons squad leader. Best squad I have ever had, ever. Best guy, not the best guys. I made them really good, and they made themselves look really good too. I tried teaching them up as much as I can. I love them like family. I had them at my house almost every other weekend,
Mm-hmm.
doing stuff with them. Had a lot of stupid incidents I had to cover up for them, but we rocked it. We ended up going to PTA Pukuloa training area on the Big Island of Hawaii, and we did our company evals and then battalion evals. And I was the second or third weapon squad to go through on platoon live fire.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went through it, I had battalion and brigade command come up to me and go, "I want you to teach every weapon squad leader what you just did here." I'm like, why? Like, it's simple stuff. We set up a support by fire. We pushed through the support by fire. We pushed up to the second inner engagement, set up support by fire. That what makes it any different? They're just like, the way you commanded your guns. You never had a lull in fire, and I had an extra guy too.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an extra. He didn't really fit in the squad, so they just gave it to me. They gave me him with the new grenade launcher, the 320. So I was like, all right, cool. Now I have 2 machine guns, 2 assistant gunners, and I got a guy with a grenade launcher in the middle. This is sweet. He could be like my personal little assistant.
Right.
So, and that's what I did. I set it up that way where we're lobbing grenades, we're talking guns. The guys understand the rates of fire because when I was a team leader before, I broke this stuff down for them in machine gun class, which they never had, and at a machine gun range.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know what rapid was, cyclic was, sustain. They knew none of it. So I had to, I mean, with my mouth noises, I can't do anymore because I got trached a few years ago. But I would make my noises, and they're like, "Oh, I get it," and I'm like, "Cool." And that set up a huge deal. It was a big deal for like our battalion, for our company, that I did that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we get back from PTA and everything's going great, and we get some new soldiers. I tell my team leaders to like go take them out, check their equipment because they didn't know where to stick them, so they stick them in weapons squad. Of course, I always get stuck with them.
All
And
the extras.
yeah, just like 3 brand new privates. Like, they're coming to our platoon, got it, but like, why stick them with me? Oh, we want them to be with you because you can teach them up, you can do PT with them. All right, cool, got it. Tracking, we'll get it done. So I had my team leaders take them out, and they do layouts of all their OCIE, all their issued equipment,
Mm-hmm.
and they're missing stuff. And they live in another quad away from where our guys live, and it's not the closest place, but they don't have any cars either. And my team leaders are just being asses to these guys. Uh, what ends up happening is they end up getting smoked. Old school smoke session.
Mm-hmm.
And then my team leaders were getting disrespected for them, so I came out and joined in it. Didn't do anything too harsh, I thought. I had it way worse in Iraq, getting tore up. But What I didn't know is about a year prior, the Marine Corps base had a squad leader who had a private die from hazing. So the next 6 months of my life, I was involved in a hazing investigation.
Yeah.
This sweet packet that I still hold on to and keep near and dear to me. That talks about all the inconsistencies and lies and everything that went on. And so I was taken out of leadership for 6 months and put in the training room. And my life sucked. You want to talk about depression? But this is where I changed. It wasn't the same depression I had from not being overseas or being homeless, any of those things. I got to see my daughter every day.
Yeah.
I got to go home. I didn't have to stay there till 6, 7 o'clock at night. I mean, I would go into work at 4:30 in the morning to get stuff done. I might stay to 11 on certain days, but other than that, I'm going home when I want to. I'm getting the off time I want. I'm watching my daughter grow up. The investigation ends up getting complete. Our company commander, who apparently was hazing somebody too, so we had to go in and see the brigade commander.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Eddie Van Buren's a great guy, and whatever somebody was saying that he said was just trash. And all of us would stand behind that. We had some soft-hearted people that did not belong in the jobs they were in.
Right.
So during that time, my XO and I had two XOs. Both XOs became really good friends. We actually still talk afterwards too. Quite a bit actually. They're always first to either rip me on something or bring me back up or send me whiskey bottles. Like one sent me a whiskey bottle that has a 114 thing on it up there when I left because I never got a PCS award when I left. But we go see the brigade commander and the brigade command sergeant major. Brigade command sergeant major, I can never look at him with a straight face. He talks and sounds exactly like Barack Obama.
Oh boy.
So when he's sitting there trying to talk to you, all I'm just picturing is Barack Obama. I don't even remember his name. And I mean, anybody that was in that unit at the time could attest to that guy. The brigade commander, I don't remember his name either, but he goes, "You could have gotten in so much trouble for this. We could have took you down, 3 ranks and gave you extra duty. But your punishment is you're going to read this book." Okay.
Oh, twist my arm.
Then you're going to do PT with me and the sergeant major. Okay. I'm like, that's my punishment?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah. I'm like, all right. Got it. All right. So when I'm in headquarters, we get a new first sergeant. The first sergeant goes, all right, so we're getting ready to go to Japan. And I'm like, yeah, Japan's going to be a great time. And he's like, I need you to be the company armor. And I'm like, is this my punishment? Is this literally how I'm going to get? He goes, all right. You're not going to be the armor for long. He goes, there's a lot of crap down there that's stupid and needs to be fixed. And I know you're the guy to fix it. Like, I don't know the first thing about being an armor. I've been to an armorer's course when I was like a private, but I don't know about being an armor. He's like, you got this. Just lean on the guy who's already in there, who's going to be your assistant, who's been doing it. That's it. And that's what we did. So I managed to somehow get all of our weapons from the U.S., Hawaii to Japan without an issue and not lose anything. But during that time, I didn't get to do what everybody else did. I didn't get to go out with like what Aaron and the other guys did as far as training with the Japanese army. I got to hang out in their friendship tent and get drunk with them.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it was a cool experience. I got to go. The one thing I did get privileged with is I got to have a local family that like endorsed me and sponsored me and took me out to their house for a cookout and stuff like that. And that was fantastic. That was a great time. But I didn't get to have what I would have had with my guys. And I kept seeing that new weapons squad leader in my spot, and it just kind of irked me. I wanted my job back. I wanted to watch the Packers. I wanted to watch my daughter grow.
Right.
So we get back from Japan, and Japan was hell. The weather was absolutely miserable while we were there the entire time. I actually feel bad for the guys that were out in the field because I was in a warm tent.
Yeah, it was cold and wet, wasn't it?
Oh, it was awful. Yeah, a lot of guys got sick.
Yeah.
A lot of guys got sick. We get back, of course, everybody's sick. In the first week back, I finally get my next squad. And that's when I finally got to be a rifle squad leader instead of a weapon squad leader. And I was very happy to finally have my own guys. couple of fantastic team leaders, great soldiers. One guy I tried pushing to go to Ranger, but he did not have the motivation. He had the look, the physicality, everything for it. Just couldn't get him there. Um, all of that just went on for a while, and then all of a sudden, I get orders from the Army to be a recruiter, and it hits you. It's like shit. How do I get out of these? Oh, you can sign a deck statement. How long is that going to take? Probably not long enough. All right, so I got to talk about USAREC. So I called USAREC. I used to do CrossFit. I was big into CrossFit.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of money on CrossFit and went to this gym in Kaneohe that was owned by a Marine Corps family. And I ended up tearing my bicep tendon and rotator cuff. And I got told by our PA at 114 that it was, what do you say I have? Oh, I have tendonitis in my elbow.
Mm-hmm.
Never got an MRI, nothing. Just, okay, cool. So we're doing PT tests for EIB. And I'm doing push-ups, and I felt the pop. I go get an MRI done. I find out I have a torn rotator cuff.
Oh.
All right. So I don't tell the unit this. They use my last PT test that I had on record to let me go over to recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Talk with USAREC. They thought it was going to be really cute to send me to McKinney, Texas, because my last name is McKinney.
Oh, how neat.
And then I told them no. I told him that I wanted to go to North Carolina because I knew a soldier that was already recruiting there because I served with him my first deployment, Troy Danahy, that got the Valor Award with me. I wanted to go be with him because I knew him, I trusted him, and I was going into a whole new world. So I didn't know what to expect. Mm-hmm. They're like, the best we can do is Jacksonville, North Carolina. That's right outside of Marine Corps base. No.
Right.
I want Charlotte. Send me to Charlotte. And they did. We got Charlotte. Get there, and they're getting ready to send me to recruiting school, which was down in South Carolina at that time, at Fort Jackson, and do a PT test. Felt a pop again in my shoulder. They told me to go see ortho. Saw ortho. That's when I found out it was not only my rotator cuff, but my bicep tendon. And they were like, all right, you got to have surgery. Had surgery. Wasn't a badged recruiter doing recruiter work. Wasn't getting, oh, no, I did get recruiter pay. Mm-hmm. I think I got recruiter pay during that time. But it'd take another year for me to go to recruiting school. And by that time, it's very normal for guys that come from Oconus and recruiting orders to go directly to your recruiting company and then school.
Right.
Otherwise, if you're stateside, you go to school. If you pass, then you go to your unit. So the recruiting school moved during that time to Fort Knox, Kentucky. And I was the very first class of Fort Knox, Kentucky. Got snowed in, 6-week course, got addicted to bourbon. Not addicted like in a bad way, but
you liked
did
it.
the bourbon trail. Oh, well, I found out I liked it for sure.
Yeah.
Did the bourbon trail, and then found some guys that were like I of course I hung out with all the infantry and special forces guys at recruiting school.
Yeah.
We're all a certain breed. We do things. We were going every weekend to a new distillery, and that was what kept me going throughout the week, mm-hmm. because recruiting school is boring. So I finally get back. I'm badged, and then the other recruiters finally find out they don't like me because I tell the truth. Because when a kid walks in the door and says, "Hey, I got this on your practice test, and I want to do this as a job," and they're like, "No, we're going to sell you the Army. We're not giving you a job, but you can pick whatever you have."
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah, they didn't like me because I told them straight up, like, "Oh, we got this great job, and it comes with a $10,000 bonus. It's a petroleum specialist. Don't take that job. Why are you going to take that job? Well, it transfers to careers outside of this. You really want to do that for that long? Will you be happy knowing you did this in the military and go do it in the civilian world? Will you still be happy doing that job? Do what you want to do." And then I'd have to tell them my story. Hey, I was what's called a dep loss. You hear a recruiter, "Don't tell them what a dep loss is." Hey, I got out of my first contract. I didn't show up. I wanted to be a linguist. Guess what? I came back and I was an infantryman, and I love my job now. Does it translate to anything in the civilian world? Hell no. But there's a lot of fundamentals for my job that do transfer and translate into other places.
Yes.
So that's why I want to do it while I can do it. And then I'll figure out the next path after that. So they didn't like me for that. Um, I did decent recruiting. I got a couple of awards for recruiting. There were certain things I couldn't do. I couldn't put females in the infantry.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't do it. I know what it's like on the ground. I can't see a 130-pound girl wearing the weight that I wore, carrying my body with my weight and combat gear. I can't see that. And I didn't want to be that guy who talks to their parents when something happens.
Right.
So if they come to me and, hey, I want to be a combat engineer or I want to be an infantryman, like, go talk to Sergeant Danny. Like, I'm not your recruiter for that. Well, I'm at your school. You know what? Go talk to him. I'm not the guy. So I've only had a couple of people that have successfully gone through with their careers. A lot of them, I had a lot of them wash out of basic training, it seemed like, but those are still numbers as far as it's our side. And I hate numbers.
Right.
So I hate feeling like a salesman. I wanted to be real. So then it was like third year in recruiting. My shoulder never got better from the surgery. I started getting migraines, the TBI from previous deployments, from hitting my head when we're not overseas, all those things. Staring at a laptop computer screen under fluorescent lighting didn't help. I was very ineffective at my job. So I started seeing the TBI clinic at Fort Jackson and at Fort Gordon, driving my own vehicle, my own gas. It's an hour and a half to Fort Jackson from where I lived. It was 3.5 hours to Fort Gordon. Drive my big old truck and get down there, do my thing. And they were like, hey, we need you to do a fit for duty physical. And I wasn't really prepared for that.
Yeah.
I was like, why? We don't think you can go back to the infantry. I'm like, it is hard to deal with, but I was like, I get it. The migraines, everything going on. I was like, but I don't know who I am without that.
Mm-hmm.
So during that time, I also started coaching football for my second stint. I did it before I was in too.
So
And
what year did you start coaching football then?
2016, I started coaching while I was in the Army. I coached way back in like 2006 before I joined.
Okay.
2005.
Yeah.
So I had a couple of stints coaching and playing outside of high school then.
So do you think that helped you maybe find your purpose again then?
Yeah. So in 2016 was very 2016, I was still trying to be top flight recruiter, but be truthful. And we had this brand new school. It's called Stuart Kramer High School. It's actually this football magnet right here, Stuart Kramer High School, Storm. It was built in 2013. It was a brand new school to the area. They never had a senior class until I was their recruiter. So my very first year there was their first senior class. I approached the coach. I'm like, hey, can I be a volunteer coach? And went through a strenuous like interview process, background checks with the county to become an unofficial county employee. And he was just worried. He's like, you're in the Army. You're going to try and recruit our kids. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm like, I'm AJ when I'm here. I'm Coach McKinney when I'm here. I'm not Sergeant McKinney. Very rarely will you see me come here in full uniform if I'm not here for work during the day. I saw it as a way to get in front of kids and talk and tell them what we call my Army story. All those things like that. And what I found was at that point, I had more love for connecting with the kids than I did with recruiting in the Army. And that's really hard because the Army was my love. It was everything I've known for, at that point, 10 years. So the end of 2016, they reached out and talked to me about the Fit for Duty physical. And they're like, we're going to pitch it to USAREC and see what they want to do. The commander ends up signing off on it. I failed a PT test because I couldn't do push-ups and I couldn't run because of the shoulder blade. And the commander, who she was trying to make a name for herself and she did not want to be in recruiting, uh, wanted to chapter me out. Just wanted to get rid of me. But Fort Jackson's like, no. We sent you a fit for doozy physical. We want you to sign it. So I went through that process. But what ended up happening is I ended up ETSing during that time period. So I got no pay, no nothing. Technically was out of the Army. And the commanding general for Fort Jackson extended me for 2 years just in case. Mm-hmm. And went through the fit for duty physical. They suggested a med board. USAREC was like, well, you can be a permanent recruiter. We can use your permanent profiles and stuff like that. You can just be a recruiter, be a 79. I'm like, well, they're telling me there's no way to go back to the infantry. I'm not going to be a permanent recruiter. Your people already don't like me. So we go through with the med board. I ended up getting a date to show up to Fort Sam Houston, where the board's taking place. I got a call from my lawyer about 3 days before the trip, after I had to get on DTS and arrange all my travel and my rental car and all that garbage. And she was like, hey, you're good to go. You actually don't have to come down here. And I'm like, well, I got everything scheduled. Like,
yeah.
She's like, you know what? Go on a vacation in San Antonio. Come enjoy San Antonio for a little bit. So I did. I took 3 days comparing Whataburger to In-N-Out and Culver's and a bunch of crazy stuff, and went and saw like the Alamo and stuff I've never done before, and came back with a fresh perspective. Okay, hey, I'm medically retiring. I have an end date. Let's get this stuff rolling now. Let's figure this out. So, and that was also when I started seeing therapy or a therapist or PTSD, because that's a stigma that we could not do while you're in the infantry. Nobody wants you doing that. Did all that, try to get myself straight, right? Clear-minded. 2017 was my last football season at Stuart Kramer, and I took a school, or helped a school, rather, I didn't take them, but I helped a school that never been to the playoffs, win 2 playoff games, make it to the second round of the playoffs. Had a couple guys go D1 out of there and play football that I still follow and talk with today like they're my own kids. And it broke my heart when we lost, because I knew that was like my last it. And they had another season coming up, and I thought I might be able to swing staying for like a few months, but I could get out of my lease at that point if I did it, and I didn't have the funds coming in like I had before. So I packed up. Mind you, when the fit for duty physical and they said I was bedboarding, I already moved my family back to Wisconsin, so they could start their life.
Yeah.
So the kids could get in school. I put them above me. That was tough because I was by myself for 9 months. It was just me and my German Shepherd for 9 months, and it was tough. But I've been on deployments. This isn't a deployment. I can go grab a beer. I got friends in the area. I'm not overseas where I'm restricted. And I hardly showed up for work. I did not work. I was the highest paid volunteer coach in the state of North Carolina. Like, that's how I looked at it, because my whole life was football.
Yeah.
So I retire in June of 2018. I come home.
So I want to just stop for a second there. So I just kind of pull this all together. So you're done with the military. You've been med boarded out. You're done with coaching at this school that you have a lot of love for. And it seems like it's kind of all at one time. You pack your stuff up and you leave.
Pretty much.
How'd that feel?
Okay. So when I was going through the retirement process in those last few months I had left, I interviewed for another coaching position in Wisconsin. Okay. I actually flew home for a coaching clinic, and it's a powerhouse high school here in the area. It's the school my wife went to. So I had some familiarity with the coach. We were still in the playoffs, I think, when I actually had the initial interview with them. So I knew I was getting a position. So when I moved back, I knew what I was coming home to. I mean, it was right around football season when I got back. My son's playing in the youth league. Like, I was prepared. I'm ready to hit the ground running. Like, I thought maybe I'll go to school when I get back too, so I have something to do. I really didn't want to get a job because I'm retired. I get a compensation for all my stuff plus my retirement pay. Why would I want to just rush into working?
Absolutely.
Um, but what ended up happening was the coaching staff didn't like me. They didn't like that I stayed in my mind
Mm-hmm.
like I did in the military. They didn't like when I brought new ideas to the table because they do things a certain way around here. They didn't like that I called them out for all they do is booze and drink after every practice and game. They didn't like that I chewed Copenhagen because if I see that can fall out of your pocket one more time, I mean, okay, cool. I'll never bring the can by. And I fidget. So like if I have a can in my hand, I'll just fidget with it.
Yeah.
We didn't have fidget toys back then. We didn't have spinners or anything
We
like
didn't
that.
have the cool stuff. You had to use
No,
what you had.
no, exactly. My can was like my fidget thing.
Yeah.
So they ended up letting me go. They asked me to turn in my playbook on a Saturday. But the coach is like, hey, I'll give you a recommendation to anywhere you want to go. Like, can you point me in what direction to go?
Because so let's get this straight though. You're a good coach. This just wasn't a fit. Like this whole situation wasn't a fit. And I think he recognized that.
The staff didn't like that I was a 33-year-old that was retired.
Yeah.
That all I had to do was school.
Right.
And then come coach football. And the staff did not like that. Not to get into politics, but Wisconsin is known to lean a certain way.
Right.
So I wasn't shocked that it was going to go a certain way for me here.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to butt heads with some people along the way. So he recommended schools, and he actually called out the biggest school in the state of Wisconsin, Middleton High School, which is on the west side of Madison. And he's like, hey, they really need coaches. I can get you an interview. Cool. Like, sign me up, I guess. I'll drive to Middleton. Mm-hmm. Went to Middleton, and Middleton is a school that has had a lot of drug problems, overprivileged white kids, like kids rolling in BMWs that mommy and daddy buy them. The interview process was, hi, I'm Coach so-and-so. Here's your playbook. We'd really like you to be here for these dates. Will this work for you? And I was like, sure. And I walked away.
Yeah.
I can't do this. I'm like, I can't work for you guys. That's not a real interview process. You have no idea who I am. Like nothing. I can't work with you all. And he ended up getting fired or retired like a year later. So
yeah, they were just looking for a warm body. Sounds like
they were.
Yeah.
And so this is 2018. I'm in a deep hole now. Like we talk about depression. This is probably my lowest point.
Yeah.
And this is right before school starts. My dad and I have a fantastic relationship at this point. Like my dad, when my wife and I had our wedding in 2010, 3 years after we were married, we had an actual wedding. That was his first interaction with us as a family. Mm-hmm. Finally, he got to meet his grandson. So like he is just all about family. He used to always want us to fly back from Hawaii so we would have Christmas with him. Uh-huh. So we go to a Brewers Cubs game, and I don't drink at the game, but my dad and I get into an argument on the way back. And it was like, it must have been something building up in him and something building up in me. Brookfield, Wisconsin is a big suburb of Milwaukee, and they have a 6-lane or 8-lane road. I can't remember what it is. It goes right to the middle of the city. Mm-hmm. And it was night, and I saw a meeting, and I ended up turning the wrong way. And my dad just starts tearing me apart for my bad driving. And I got a big truck, big mud tires, so I just cross over the median, get on the right side. But my dad wouldn't let it go, which ends up making me spiral. All the depression that I've had, everything I've been dealing with the past 9 months being by myself, the year before that, dealing with crappy command team for my medical retirement, everything just finally comes out. I blow up on him. He blows up on me. My dad runs off, says he's going to get a taxi to drive home. He lives in Illinois and it's way too far. I end up disappearing. I go somewhere. My wife, the kids are in the car still. I was going to kill myself. That was the whole plan, goal. I had my gun with me. It would have been quick and clean, just done and over with. And that lasted for about 6 hours.
So I
And
want to stop for just a second.
yeah,
So when you got ready to go out that night, you grabbed your gun and
I
you knew you were going to do this?
no,
Okay.
I have a concealed carry permit,
Okay. All right.
so I always have a gun with me
Yeah.
most times. What I don't anymore. There's a reason behind why I don't anymore. But during that time frame, especially when I was in North Carolina,
Uh-huh.
that's when we were having like Middle Easterners say they're going to blow up our recruiting centers, like they did in Tennessee, where they shot it up.
Right.
So I always had my gun with me,
Okay.
even in uniform, which I shouldn't have at times. But there was when we couldn't even drive our own vehicles to work anymore, and we had to take govs home. I would bring my gun. I
Yeah.
didn't care, and I'd leave it in the office. Like I broke federal law. Oh boy. Um.
Okay. So
So
you had your gun anyway, but now
yeah,
you're like,
I'm
screw it.
done. I'm
Yeah.
tapped out. Like it
Yeah.
just it seemed like nothing. There was nothing there. It seemed like, and it lasted for about 6 hours. I ended up walking miles. I don't even know exactly where I was. And I sit down in either in front of a business or a church or something, and I finally come to the point where everything's fine. Uh, I kept having thoughts about my daughter walking down the aisle by herself. Things like that started floating through my head, and how unfair and selfish it was for me to be doing what I wanted to do. So I ended up calling, or my wife gets a hold of my friend Chris. Chris did pull the trigger on himself. He was with the honor guard at Arlington,
Mhm.
and from the stress and everything from all the funerals he did during that time frame after leaving Hawaii, he tried killing himself. Yeah, he's got the reconstruction, fake teeth, all the whole bit. So he's on the phone with Danielle and talking to Danielle about how to talk to me. Um, I my father-in-law ends up comes and picks me up from where I am. The very next day, I have not done a single thing with the VA except for my exit stuff when I retired.
Mhm.
And I'm 90% at that point. I'm 100% now, but I was 90% at that point with the VA. And they sit me down and I see therapist, psychologist, social worker. I think I went 6 rounds the next day. Chris took me to every one of those.
Mhm.
Like he would not leave my side. I handed over my gun to my father-in-law. I broke it down and everything, gave it to him, told him to put it away. I don't need it. Um, so I went through, I think I was talking to a therapist at school every day for almost 3 weeks because they have a VA therapist who's at the school. So I would talk with her. I would talk with my psychologist. I mean, it was just nonstop for 3 weeks until I started feeling better. They got me on a bunch of meds at that point, trying to get everything ironed out. Um, so I see them for every so often. I think it ended up being bi-weekly for a long time. Make it through the first semester of school, make it on the dean's list, all the cool stuff. Then my son sends an email to students at the school saying that he wanted to kill himself. And that derailed my entire second semester. It sent me back into a frenzy. I had to get him help. I had to get help. Uh, the circle continued. And then 2019 comes around. The first portion of 2019, spring is great. Dean list again. Had to make up a bunch of classes. It sucked because I had to pay for them all. Then COVID happens in spring,
Right.
and they're moving everything to a video format. I can't do that. I need structure. I need to be held accountable. If I'm there in person, I can be held accountable. And that just, I guess it didn't set me to hold. Maybe go more into isolation.
Uh-huh.
I would say because my office that I'm in now used to be in the basement, and I spent all my time in the basement until I started having problems with how cold it was and my foot going numb with like nerve problems. Go figure.
Yeah.
And everything was fine. Like, kids were here. I had the kids every day. I mean, we had an incident happen where a car wrecked out on the interstate when I was going to pick up pizza during COVID, flipped over on its top, started on fire. My daughter was with me. I pulled my vehicle to the side, ran over, pulled the guy out of the car. Like, that was huge in my daughter's eyes. She couldn't stop telling people. Like, her saying she used to say before in school is, "Don't mess with me. My dad kills people."
Right.
And then now she's going, "If you ever get a car wreck, my dad will save you."
Yeah,
I saw it.
don't mess with me. My dad saves people now.
So,
How
like,
cool is that?
it was pretty unique. I wish I had a dash cam in my car, and I wish I would have had it. Like,
Yeah.
took the footage from that day, and
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a memory that it's a core memory for her that she'll always remember. Um, so I started doing handy jobs for some friends, family friends, and ended up coming to the point where I start plowing snow for money.
Mm-hmm.
Put a plow on my truck, making money doing it that way. Start my own business with that, which we've been doing now for 5 years. Because white equals green to me, except I hate snow. So I'm complaining the entire time I'm doing it without cold and the crappy weather and all that. Um, but we also started a landscape company at the same time because I figured there's nothing more calming than putting headphones on, listening to music or a podcast and cutting grass. Like, it just soothes me out.
Yeah.
Uh, so we did that for a while. I still do that, not as much as I used to. 2021, my wife is always, we bought a brand new house built not to our specifications, but it was still in the building process. We got some choices.
Mm-hmm.
Landscaping never got done. Our ditch is horrendous. My wife was chewing me off for like 3 years. We need to get this ditch done. It's horrible. E-matting out there. And so I had a mini skid steer, and I end up going out there and pulling up the e-matting, and the skid steer starts tipping on me, and it either throws me into the road to the cars or I have to bail on it. And I bailed.
Mm-hmm.
Jump up in the air. I landed on the crest of the hill, flat on my back. I end up breaking my back. So another thing I got to recover from now. And that was right before July 4th, which would hurt me even more because I just wanted to celebrate. Memorial Day, Veterans Day, 4th of July, only holidays I care about.
I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
So, I mean, Christmas sometimes,
Yeah.
but it's still in the winter, so I don't like it. But those are the holidays that I care about. So it was like, oh, this really sucks. You know, I don't like doing fireworks and all that. I can be around them. I don't like doing them. I'd rather have some bomb pop adult beverages, sit back, relax, shoot the crap with people, see how people's lives are. And here I am with this cage underneath my clothes, looking like an abominable snowman at this point. Um, and then we're out plowing later that year. My back hasn't healed still.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting ready to start doing some stuff. I don't remember exactly what it was, but late December of 2021, I end up getting hospitalized with COVID. Um, didn't know it. I was just puking up mucus. Like, I couldn't. I was getting pounding migraines, which I'm used to,
Right. You
but
just
the
thought this
mucus
was it.
thing, like, I could barely like talk without coughing.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 days into it, they say my oxygen level is just spiraling down. I'm getting delirious. They end up putting me in a medical coma.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't wake up until February 8th. Intubated, food port, crazy dreams, the amount of drugs I was on. They had to do a study on me. I process drugs faster than anybody they've ever seen come through there. Um, my liver just, I guess, does overtime.
Uh-huh.
No idea why. I remember waking up February 8th. I told the nurse I want to watch the Packers. And she's like, honey, you don't want to see that. And it's just kind of like, what are you talking about? And I could barely talk. I didn't know I had a trach.
Uh-huh.
I could barely talk, so I don't know why I'm so soft. And they finally learned that I'm like alert, alert.
Yeah,
Because I tell her too, I'm like, your clock's wrong. That says February 8th. And they're like, yeah, it's February 8th. I'm like, no, it's not. It might be January 8th. It ain't February 8th. Bring the doctor team in. They tell me what's going on. Finally, my wife wasn't able to see me for the longest time. Uh, so finally, I'm seeing her,
Hmm.
and knowing that I'm seeing her, I wouldn't allow anybody to give me a bath except for her. She hated that, but I loved it. Um, my beard got massive. Like hair, I get a weekly haircut still. That's one of my bad ticks from the military. I still get a weekly haircut.
Yeah.
It's therapy. I love it.
But
I got my
you were
haircut
like
on Friday.
a Rip Van Winkle then, basically. You just
Hey, keep it clean. Oh, it was out to here. It was bad. It
yeah.
was brutal. And so they tell me on February 8th what's going on. This is what you've been. This is what's happened with you. Danielle tells me she has videos and pictures to fill me in when I'm back at home and everything's good. She'll show me everything when I'm ready. Um, so they tell me that in order for me to leave the hospital, I have to get my oxygen level up to a certain percentage.
Right.
I think it was 96 or 97 I had to be at. And I was at like 90 or 89. And they're like, what we're going to do is we're going to have you walk. You're going to walk around the hospital on our floor because you're still on the ICU floor. Then you're out of the COVID closed off area, but we still need you to have a mask on and all this crap. Um, so the next 3 days go by and I push myself.
Hmm.
Like I'm finally alert. I want to leave. I'm pushing myself. The 11th rolls around and it's right before the weekend. And I tell the doctors I'm ready to go home. No, no, you're not. Yeah, I am. I'm like, okay, let's put it this way. Did I check myself into the hospital and this isn't a prison? Well, yeah, that's correct. I'm like, I can check my ass out then, right? Well, we don't want you to go that far, Mr. McKinney. I'm like, I want to leave. Well, you got a trach in. The trach's got to come out. When can we get the trach out? I think the earliest we can do it is Wednesday, so that way it has a little time to heal before you leave. Okay. So what you're telling me is the 14th, I can go home. Well, you might go to a rehab center. And I went down the line. I can't remember what, I think it's Good Burger movie or whatever. I went, F you, F you, F you, F you, and F you. I'm going home. Figure it out. And they did. They
Hmm.
got the tray pulled on Sunday because they wanted me to go to the rehab facility. I got asked a million times if I wanted the COVID vaccination before I left. I told them no every time because I had the best antibodies you can have because I just fought it.
Right.
Um, so they released me. I get to go home. I called my barber. That's the first thing I did. Literally in the car, my wife brought my old cell phone to me so I could like video chat with them while I was in the hospital. I locked it out. So they never gave me my new phone just in case I locked it out.
Uh-huh.
Um, so she calls them on my phone and they're always closed on Mondays. And he's like, wait, AJ wants a haircut? I'm going to the shop right now. Meet me there. Got my hair cut, got my beard cut. Oh my gosh. It was the best thing ever. Came home, had a walker for a little bit. Uh, they say it takes 30 days for every day you're in ICU to recover. And I'm still recovering.
Yeah.
And it didn't help that I broke my back before then, too, because that still has not recovered.
Yeah. Just a whole
So,
string of stuff going on.
yep. During COVID, too, I tried coaching.
Hmm.
I couldn't coach because nobody wanted to hire anybody because it was COVID.
Right.
I mean, Madison, Wisconsin, Dane County was awful. Like, they wouldn't even let you play or practice without wearing masks. And you could only do it for so long. And you could only be so close to each other. And they were actually escaping the county, private schools were, and going to neighboring counties and practicing in other schools.
Hmm.
So that way they didn't have to have those restrictions. Um, the dreams I had while I was in ICU, I died in every one of them. I watched the end of the world in, oh my gosh, what is it called? Dubai. Watched the world evaporate like Thanos snapping his fingers. I died in World War II in the Horn of Africa, getting off of a C-130 or something down there. Um, I died as, I guess I didn't die in every one of them. I died as a deputy in Chesterfield, Ohio. Like one of the first things I asked my wife when I was finally out of it is, "Hey, where's my badge and my gun?"
Mhm.
I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, I'm a deputy. Like, what are you talking about?" And she's like, "No, you're not." I'm like, "Yes, I am. Chesterfield, Ohio." And she actually did a Google search. There was a Deputy McKinney at a Chesterfield, Ohio Sheriff's Department in Ohio. Could
Wow.
not believe it.
Wow.
Could not believe it. And the other one was an underground network
Mhm.
that was like a Nazi Germany for COVID vaccination passports. I got like stolen out of the hospital, still attached and restrained to my bed because I apparently punched a nurse in real life. But I restrained in bed in a hospital gown, going through the waterways of Madison, Wisconsin. Eating Panda Express on the market, like just weird stuff like that. My wife got remarried because I was gone for so long. Like stupid dreams, but
That's
so realistic.
some good drugs there. So you're home now. I mean, we're this 2025 now. So you're still recovering from some
Yeah.
of this stuff, and what have you been doing kind of in the meantime?
So right after I got discharged from the hospital, I interviewed for another coaching job
Hmm.
because I wanted to break away from what I would call normalcy at that point, where I wasn't doing anything, not being active. I wanted to push myself.
Right.
So my son goes to a private school in Lake Mills, Wisconsin, which is about 25 minutes from here, and he wanted to play football. And I was like, well, I didn't really want to coach there, but I know if I coach somewhere else, I'm not going to see you play. So why don't I coach there so that way I can see you play? Try not to coach you because I know you don't want dad coaching you.
Hmm.
He ended up being in my position group, so I ended up coaching him. Um, but I wanted to push myself then, and nobody really knew the background on me at the school. They knew I was former military. They didn't know I was in the hospital, so I'm like running hills with the kids like 6 months after discharge,
Uh huh.
like really pushing myself, and I am dying, but I'm not letting anybody see it. I'd get back in my truck and I'd be wheezing, lungs just on fire. My son knew what was going on with me. I didn't let the players know because the other coaches wouldn't do it. They're like, "Oh yeah, run hills," and I'm like, "I'll beat your ass up there,"
Yeah.
and I'd run up there in front of them. So that inspired a lot of them. I've not done that since then because I realized I am not built like that anymore. But pushing myself at that point, I also started volunteering with. I did before the hospital, but I didn't do a lot. Wounded Warrior Project.
Yeah.
I'm a peer leader for Wounded Warrior Project in Southern Wisconsin. So I plan events. I host a peer support group once a month in Madison. That was a really big deal to me. I got really big into video games, streaming online with Wounded Warrior until the whole section became crap because the people in charge of it didn't care anymore. We had a really good community there where we're helping people out during COVID, from setting equipment to helping computers get built for them to game to just so many cool things. Um, Up until recently, I didn't really focus on myself, and I'm talking recent,
Mhm.
like the past 8 months. I still been coaching, same place, the last 3 years, going on year four, and I'm in charge of the youth program now from last year to this year. It's fantastic being in charge of a bunch of middle schoolers. Um, I just got back from well, you know who Zach Brown is, right?
I sure do. Did you go to his
Uh,
camp?
Camp Southern Ground.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I went to Camp Southern Ground. I went down there for Warrior Week.
Uh huh.
Amazing. I mean, I am a very isolated person. Like these four walls that I have right here in front of you. This is where I am the majority of the time.
Yeah.
If I'm not coaching football, or I'm not out plowing snow, or I'm not out hanging out with family, I'm in this room. This is my comfort spot. I control everything in my surroundings.
Hmm.
And until my basement's complete, it's gonna stay that way here. But it was really a stretch me going down there because I knew how much I was gonna have to be open.
Yeah.
And of course, the first thing they do when they contact me after we do all the screening process and stuff, and they schedule a date for me, they contact me a week before. Hey, we want you to be like a chalk leader for your group. Please tell me I am not the first person you called. Nope, two people already turned it down. I'm like, damn it, fine, I'll take it. So there was only a group of 6 of us at first, but actually 19 in total when I got down there.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff you learn, I mean, I love sharing. I keep it all right here because I still work on it from time to time. They give you a binder and a book with all this stuff on it. The brain-based Enneagram,
Mm-hmm.
learning about your personality types, personality traits. This is just during Warrior Week. So Warrior Week is to prepare you for civilian life. Yes, I am a little beyond that, obviously, because of my timeline, but I still felt this would be a good thing to go to, and they did too. They were strongly recommending it.
Mm-hmm.
They give you a name tag that you put on your desk that says all your personality traits: analytic, relator, responsibility, strategic, belief, activator, intellection, command, learner, and individualization. So you take the Clifton Strengths test,
Yep.
and we took it in recruiting school too, which I really wish I could. I need to contact them and get my results from 10 years ago because it'd be amazing to see how much I changed. Uh, so you learn about these 34, 35, 36 personality types and how they work and how it defines you, what your strengths and weaknesses are. And I'm like, dang, man, this really blew my mind. Like I'm seeing things now a way I didn't see them before, and how I might butt heads with somebody with this other personality type. Then they break it down even more into your brain-based enneagrams, which is a nature nurture thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned so much walking away from there. They try and set you up with like setting up your LinkedIn, which I really didn't care too much about because I've been on LinkedIn since I was in recruiting. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
But getting you ready for civilian life. And then we actually ended up being there for an extra 36 hours because Atlanta got a quarter inch of snow. So we got to live in the little lodge a little bit longer and delayed a flight and came back. And now I'm gonna hopefully get ready for Path. Path is PTSD
Mm-hmm.
soon. But I got another thing coming up called Thrive with UNC, University of North Carolina, where it's all about TBI PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
They study your brain. I already went through the initial interview process. I actually just got a date yesterday confirmed to go down there. For 3 days, I'll see 19 different specialists. And then I'll come back for anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months on the next date. So that way we can go through therapy and treatment for everything.
Yeah, they're finding out the whole, PTSD in the relationship between TBI, which I don't think that they were really looking at before, because TBI, you have TBI, you don't know it sometimes for years for some people. Sometimes it happens very quickly, but it sounds like you have a lot of things coming up that are going to be very, very helpful for you. And it's been amazing sitting here talking with you. You may not know this, but we've been talking for 3 hours, and
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like that long, in all honesty. But as we kind of come towards the end of our conversation, I want to make sure, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you did want to talk about? And then I just have one final question for you.
Well, Aaron didn't like me when I first came to the unit. You need to know that.
Okay.
Aaron and I butted heads for a while.
Yeah.
Aaron didn't respect me until I think there came a certain moment where I stood up for everybody in front of battalion command.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after that, I can't remember if I represented him at the board or not for E5. I can't remember. I think I did. But there wasn't respect until then. Like Aaron and I, like he had his clique of friends that didn't like me, and he kind of like rolled with it too.
Right.
We were actually just talking about that the other day, and we don't know exactly what the moment was. I don't remember. I of course I was still like busting height and weight. It seemed like a percentage off every time, so maybe that's why he like, oh, this guy. But the things I brought to them definitely reinforced their lives and made things better.
He loves you now.
Well, him and I talk quite a bit.
Yeah,
Like he just like I love keeping in contact with him. I loved when he was doing coding stuff because my degree is in system admin. So it's like I love computers. Coding's going away, obviously, because ChatGPT can do all of it now. AI
Right.
can.
Yeah.
But the other things, like the couple things, like that really hit for me. I always got told your ASVAB score mattered when you're in the military. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. Can it open up opportunities for you? Yes. From getting a 73 and a 72 to become an 11 Bravo, you need a 31 to be an 11 Bravo.
Yeah.
That's all you need. You need a 95 on the combat line to become an 11 Bravo. I chose to be that because that's what I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. And it leads me to my second thing. Your path isn't determined for you. Your actions are what changes your path. If I would have been homeless, I probably would have never joined the Army. If I would have never joined the Army, I would have never met my wife. I wouldn't have my amazing kids today. Every time I came to that T intersection, the direction I chose to go has led me to where I am today. Could it have been better? We talked about it earlier. I could have been a ranger. I could still be in right now. I'd be a sergeant major somewhere right now. I was on the fast track. Injuries delayed that. So yeah, I probably could have been, but also the worst could have happened. You never know. So those are my couple things.
Well, my final question was going to be, at the end of this conversation, when someone's listening to this story 100 years from now and you and I aren't even on this earth anymore, what do you want them to take away from it, our conversation, and from the way you've lived your life? I feel like you answered that, but is there anything you'd like to add?
We learn about values. I mean, Army, leadership, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. Can't believe I just nailed that. Don't ask me the Soldier's Creed, though, because I will not remember that. I kind of live by those mottos in a way still to date. Leadership. I mean, I lead my family. I don't want to be out in the community leading the community. Honor. I'm really not honoring anybody. Integrity is huge. I've learned in this world that a lot of people can say something and not mean it. That I stand by that. Selfless service. I am a community steward. I do. I've never been paid to coach football, ever. Do I want to be paid to it? Yeah, at the next level. This level, no. I want to impact the kids around me. I want to impact our future. I had a kid that this past summer enlisted in the Army. He's going to be oh my gosh, he's going to be a tanker. And I was like, oh, hey, Uber. I call him Uber all the time now. Like, you're my driver, Uber. But, and Phil loves it. Like, I just all the time with him. Hey, Uber. What's up, Uber? Personal courage, not so much. I guess selfless service, obviously, respect. I've learned from the places I lived, the things I've done, especially the place I live now. Treat others the way you want to be treated. I was just having this conversation with my daughter yesterday. One of our friends, his daughter's struggling. She doesn't know her place in the world right now. So he was picking my daughter up today after school and taking his daughter and my daughter out for lunch at Chick-fil-A. And she doesn't know why she had to go. Mm-hmm. She's not friends with her. The other girl has her own friends. And my daughter is loving, sweet, and caring, but she's turned into a mean girl, it seems like, the past year and a half. Like, there's something up with that. And I had to express to her, think about if you were in her situation. When I see homeless people out there, I think about how I was in that situation. When I see a young kid getting in trouble, I think about where I was in that situation. How would I have handled that at that age? And how can I help that person now? Mm-hmm. And I had to express that to her last night. So that respect, that treating people the way you want to be treated. I have way too many moments of those in my life. And I am very good to the people that treat me the way I would want to treat them. And there are people that I do not give a darn about because they don't have respect for others. Mm-hmm. So I think that boils my entire career into everything. Like, I mean, going back from the day I was born to now, it's all about respect. I mean, let's hear a little RESPECT going on right now in the background. That's what it is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, thanks for taking time out on a Wednesday morning. It's cold as hell outside here, so it's probably about the same out there in Wisconsin. But
4 degrees here right now.
yeah, I think we're about there. That's the high for today. But no, I appreciate you taking the time out. It's been great to get to know you. Not only because you've got an incredible story, but it's always great to meet someone that my son looks at and respects so much. And so, again, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the story of one of our nation's heroes on Veterans Archives, where your story matters. We are dedicated to preserving these stories for future generations.